Chapter 926. Meng Tian was skeptical. When he revolved his vital energy, he found that his dantian was flowing smoothly, unlike before. He could not help but stare at Suyu in shock. How did you do it? The blood-bone, old ghost cultivation is at the first stage of all creations. Suyu glanced at him. You don't need to know that. What you should know is that from now on, the person you will listen to is me. Meng Tian calmed down from his surprise, as if he had been splashed with a bucket of cold water. However, when he thought about it carefully, he felt much better. Compared to the temperamental blood-bone old ghost, the fellow in front of him was more humane. Judging from his behavior, he was kind to his own people, so he would not kill him easily. As he thought about it, he felt much better. You should recuperate first, Suyu instructed as he recovered his vital energy and physical strength on the spot. 2 hours later, Suyu had fully recovered. He then took out the Shao's family master's space ring and glanced inside. There were 10 million crystals, hundreds of books of spirit-level cultivation techniques, countless elixirs of various levels, and an enormous amount of materials. All of the 5th-grade items were worth at least 50 to 60 million. Shao's family master, did you carry all of the Shao's resources with you? Suyu's eyes lit up. Who would complain about having too much money? He could also bring the resources inside to the people of the Jinlong continent. Why not? All of a sudden, Suyu found a strange item among the cultivation techniques. It was a cultivation technique that was inscribed on a black bone. It was called the 100 Bones Demonic Tempering Technique. It was a top-grade legendary cultivation technique that was used to train one's body. Suyu had some impression of this cultivation technique. Xiao Lingjian had used it before, and its effects on body tempering were remarkable. Xiao Lingjian had only scratched the surface of the technique, yet it had such transformations. If he cultivated it to a deeper level, his body would probably be extremely powerful. Suyu had the evil dragon divine body to refine his body, so he was not too keen on this item. However, this item was very valuable, and it would be a good idea to sell it at the auction for crystals or exchange it for a top-grade legendary cultivation technique that he wanted. Meng Tian, what does your beast-taming technique focus on? Suyu asked. Meng Tian had already accepted his fate, so he quickly adapted to it. Master, the beast-taming technique focuses on 2 aspects. The first aspect is communication. The demonic beasts are trained from a young age, and they can be controlled. The second aspect is rearing. After the demonic beasts are tamed, they will continue to grow, and the overall strength of the beast-taming master will increase. The beasts will be more willing to follow them. Generally speaking, a beast tamer's demonic beasts were mostly raised from infancy. Wild demonic beasts that had already taken form were usually unruly and difficult to tame, and would often turn on their masters. Only on special occasions would beast tamers use special methods to temporarily control ferocious demonic beasts. For example, Meng Tian had taken control of the ferocious birds in one of the Shangwan family's bird colonies, causing them to temporarily lose their spirituality and besiege Suyu and Shangwan Yunk. My beast-taming art came from a book left behind by a senior beast-tamer when I was young. From it, I found the experience and method of communicating with demon beasts. Then, I slowly tamed demon beasts and gradually cultivated them to where I am today. Suyu nodded. Yes. How do I communicate with the demonic beasts? Meng Tian said. It was recorded in the letter that the senior spent his entire life to decipher more than 100 simple demonic language words. Moreover, there were many hand gestures that allowed him to communicate with demonic beasts. Is that so? Suyu's eyes flickered. So, is it easier to communicate with words or with gestures? This question made Meng Tian feel a little disdainful, but on the surface, he was very calm. Of course it's through language. It's very difficult for demonic beasts to understand your exact meaning with hand gestures. On the other hand, language is simple and straightforward. The efficiency of using language to persuade a strange demonic beast is 10 times that of using hand gestures. It's a pity that there aren't many remnants of the demon clan's language in the 9 prefectures, and the beast tamers who have mastered the demon clan's language are rarely willing to share it. As a result, the development of the path of beast tamers is very slow, and it's far behind the path of alchemy, craftsmanship, and other sections. So he muttered to himself irresolutely for a moment before he took out a jade pendant and recorded a part of his memory about the demon clan's language in it. These were 1/10 of the demon clan's words that Su Yu knew, and they were enough for Meng Tian to benefit from for the rest of his life. These are the demon clan's words. Take them back and digest them, Su Yu said. Meng Tian was taken aback. He took the jade pendant suspiciously and placed it on his forehead. Then, a large amount of memory was instilled into his mind. At first, he was very confused because he didn't recognize any of the words. But soon, he was shocked because the 200 demon clan's words that had given him a great opportunity were all in there. Moreover, the translation was extremely accurate. In other words, the rest of the huge amount of words in his memory were all demon clan's words. When he realized this, Meng Tian was so excited that his whole body trembled. Nothing was more meaningful to a beast tamer than the demon clan's words. He had paid respects to many beast tamer seniors, and he had also participated in many gatherings of beast tamers. However, very few people were willing to share the demon clan's words that they had mastered. Everyone cherished their own knowledge. Moreover, the more advanced a beast tamer was, the more they would treat the demon clan's words that they had mastered as their inheritance. They wouldn't easily reveal even a single word of it. The demon clan's words that Su Yu had given to Meng Tian weren't just a description, but a treasure trove that contained almost all of the demon clan's words. He was sure that the demon clan's words that all the beast tamers in Jiuzhou had mastered were less than 1% of this memory. After mastering all of them, it would be equivalent to mastering the demon clan's language and being able to communicate with the demon clan from a young age. He could even convince some wild demonic beasts with extremely high spiritual intelligence to work for him. Meng Tian was so excited that he almost felt like he was dreaming. Mastering so many demon clan's words, sooner or later, he would become a top-notch beast tamer. When he came back to his senses, Meng Tian had an idea. Holding the jade pinned in his hand, he knelt in front of Su Yu and kowtowed 3 times respectfully. His face was full of respect and gratitude. Master, I will never forget your great kindness. He finally understood why Su Yu had said that submitting to him would give him unimaginable benefits. This wasn't just unimaginable. It was a great benefit that he couldn't even dream of. He believed that any beast tamer on the continent would flock to him and fight to become Su Yu's servant. This matter is only known by the heavens, the earth, you, and me. If it is leaked, it will only bring harm to both of us. I don't need to remind you of this, do I? Su Yu said. Meng Tian said solemnly, Please rest assured, Master. Without your permission, I won't leak a single word. If it was really leaked, Meng Tian would be the first to be besieged by powerful beast tamers who would seize the demon clan's words. So you would also be targeted. All right, take these 10 million crystals from the Shao family and use them to purchase resources for raising demonic beasts. Su Yu thought for a moment, then handed over the 10 million crystals to him. Meng Tian was a worthy assistant. Even though the strength of the demonic beasts he controlled now wasn't considered powerful, they had already displayed a terrifying side. If he continued to be trained, he would surely become a formidable force in the future. 10 million. Meng Tian's palms trembled, and he bowed gratefully once again. He didn't hold any grudges against Su Yu, and it was replaced by rejoicing and gratitude. He was glad that he had met Su Yu, and he was grateful for the opportunity that had been bestowed upon him. Master, Meng Tian swears to follow you until death. Meng Tian said sincerely. Su Yu nodded and asked, Why did you besiege the Situ family? It was the saint's order, Meng Tian said. When he mentioned the word saint, his tone was visibly trembling. Su Yu frowned slightly. Saint? Who is he? I don't know. I only know that he's the highest-ranking ruler of our organization. I've never seen him in person, Meng Tian said. There's such a mysterious organization in the blessed and heavenly lands. How big is your organization? Is the blood-bone old monster in your organization? Suyu asked. Meng Tian shook his head again. No one knows exactly how big it is. All we know is that it's only a branch of the organization in the blessed and heavenly lands. It used to be run by an all-creation strong man named Qianshan. We call him Home Master Qianshan. Later, the blood-bone old monster appeared and killed Home Master Qianshan, swallowing him alive. In the end, not only did the saint not pursue the matter of him being a remnant of the ghost race, but he also appointed him as the new Hall Master in charge of this place. All of us who used to be Hall Master Qianshan subordinates became the blood-bone old monster subordinates. Many of us, including myself, were placed with seals. Su Yu's eyes shone with shrewdness. The blessed and heavenly lands had an all-creations Hall Master in charge. In the land of Jojo, there were as many as 45 regions. Didn't that mean that this organization had at least 45 all-creation strongmen? With such a huge force, it would be difficult for any state to rival it. Suyu was getting more and more confused. Why did such a colossal and mysterious organization exist in the Jojo continent? Why did the saint order you to do this? Suyu's eyes flickered as he asked. Meng Tian smiled bitterly. I'm just a nobody in the hall, and I'm even more insignificant in the entire organization. How would I know the saint's intentions? However, I've heard the Shao's family master mention that although the blessed and heavenly lands are located in the barren lands of Jojo, it's a mysterious place. The saint seems to be up to something big, and he wants to wipe out this region first. Suyu stroked his chin. Did the so-called mystery refer to the ancient bronze tree god sleeping here? He didn't know much, so Suyu didn't pursue the matter. He asked, apart from you, the Shao's family master, and the purple moon demonic man, are there any other forces? Meng Tian shook his head. Our mission this time is to wipe out the Situ family first. So you thought for a moment. Why not the Shangwan family? With the scale of the birds, they could have easily wiped out the Shangwan family in the past. Meng Tian replied awkwardly. That was the Shao's family master's idea. He's been coveting Lady Situ for a long time. The orders from the higher-ups were only for us to wipe out the big and small families and influences as soon as possible. The Shao's family master has been itching for action for a long time. Once he got the chance, he attacked the Situ family first. For that, he even set up a diversion plan. So he was relieved to hear that the Shangwan family was safe and sound. Chapter 927. When Suyu heard this, his eyes turned cold. Meng Tian's whole body trembled, and he knelt down in panic. Master, please forgive me. I was just thinking of Master. It won't happen again. Suyu restrained his coldness. He did have the power to protect the Situ family, but it didn't mean that he should give up his bottom line. After saying this, Suyu slowly stood up. Meng Tian followed closely behind. You don't have to follow me for the time being, Suyu said. After the great battle, your demonic beasts suffered heavy casualties. Go to the nearest Tianya city to recuperate. If anything happens, I will inform you. Upon hearing this, Meng Tian felt as if he had been pardoned, and he immediately went to Tianya city. A day later, Suyu rushed back to the Situ family's castle in the sky. This place was deserted. Only the formation was still burning quietly. As he thought of this, Suyu used the communication jade pendant to send a message to Lady Situ, ordering her to lead her people back. Although the world was big, there weren't many places that were better defended than the Situ clan's sky castle. It would be a pity to abandon it like this. Then, Suyu headed in the direction of the Shangwan family. Along the way, he found many corpses of the Situ family's members, who had been taken away by Cabinet Mistress Kanchan, as well as many from the Red Blood Palace. It must have been the doing of the Shao family's master who tried to kill them. As Suyu flew past, he swept the crowd with his gaze. He didn't know whether Cabinet Master Kanchan had been killed or not. In terms of cultivation, Cabinet Master Kanchan was a 5th-grade almighty, so she was no match for the Shao's family master. While he was searching, Suyu suddenly saw a small figure stumbling in the distance. Her eyes were filled with annoyance. I'm so pissed off. What kind of lousy place is this? Why do we have to go around and around again? Gongsun Wuxia was so angry that she puffed up her cheeks. Suyu was stunned. When he sensed it carefully, he was surprised to find that the chaotic space ripples had already spread to this place. When they were fighting, the Situ clan's territory clearly hadn't been affected. How long had it been? Even this place had been affected. Huh? Suyushin? Gongsun Wuxia's eyes lit up, and she ran over in a zigzag manner, her rosy lips panting. Are you all right? Where are those two bastards? You got rid of him? Suyu smiled. Yes, we're safe for the time being. We're our senior brother Shan Liang and Lady Situ. Upon hearing this, Gongsun Wuxia said angrily, I get angry just thinking about it. Not long after we left, the space nearby started to become chaotic, and we all got separated. Is that so? Suyu stood on the spot and looked at the boundlessly vast area of spatial disorder from afar. He felt an indescribable pressure in his heart. It was as if an invisible giant hand had grasped this huge area and was constantly clenching. As for Suyu and the others, they were like ants in the palm of the hand. A wave of restlessness and uneasiness bubbled in Suyu's blood. Let's go to the Shangwan family. Cabinet Mistress Kong Chan's corpse isn't here, so she might have already gone to the Shangwan family to meet up with Palace Master Hua. Suyu shook his head slightly and tried his best to keep his spirits up. Gongsun Wuxia tapped her chin, feeling slightly better as she followed behind Suyu, skipping and skipping. Both of them proceeded straight towards the Shangwan clan, but even after walking for a long time, they still hadn't reached their destination. Instead, their surroundings were getting more and more unfamiliar. Suyu's sharp senses detected that the chaotic space in this place was becoming more frequent, and they would inevitably be transported every few steps they took. Now, they had no idea where they had been transported to. As for Suyu, the pressure he felt became more and more intense. His restlessness and uneasiness also continued to increase. What's going on? Gongsun Wuxia complained again, her small mouth pouting. Strange spatial disturbances, one after another, just like a fishing net. Her words were unintentional, but when they fell into Suyu's ears, they were like thunder. Fishing net. Suyu seemed to have grasped something, and his heart started palpitating. Intermittently, the spatial disturbances they encountered along the way became more and more frequent. At first, there was a space transportation point with a circumference of dozens of miles. Then, it was a few miles apart. Now, it was a few meters apart. It was as if the space in the whole area had started to boil. In other words, it was like a giant fishing net, and it was time to retract it. A great sense of crisis engulfed Suyu's heart. Let's go quickly. Suyu grabbed Gongsun Wuxia's wrist and used his soul eyes to try his best to avoid the space transportation. However, the further they went, the more frequent the spatial disturbances became. In the end, there was a space transportation point every half a meter. Suyu held Gongsun Wuxia's hand tightly as he was dragged into the space transportation point. What's going on? Gongsun Wuxia cried out in panic. She also felt that some kind of change was getting more and more urgent, as if something was about to happen. Suyu did not answer, because he realized that he could no longer feel the existence of any living beings. It was as if all the living beings had been swept away. No matter which unfamiliar area he was transported to, there was only dead silence. Swish! All of a sudden, a large silver lake appeared beneath Suyu's feet. Suyu recognized the lake. It was a huge lake that was under the jurisdiction of the Shangwan family, and the Shangwan family's residence was in the middle of the lake. Looking down, he saw the Shangwan family, but there was no one in the mansion. Not only that, but even the lake had lost all traces of life. It was as if all the living beings had been wiped out. It was also at this moment that the dense and boiling spatial disturbances came to an abrupt stop. Even the space had turned into a dead silence. The wind stopped. The clouds froze. The lake was calm, without the slightest ripple. It was as if the whole space was still, except for Suyu and Gongsun Wuxia. Gongsun Wuxia shrank her neck, feeling a chill run down her spine. She could not help but lean closer to Suyu. Suyu focused his gaze. His transparent, I was suddenly unable to see through anything, and the whole world was becoming hazy and darker. After half a cup of tea's time, the world was pitch black, without color or sound. It was like a dark hell that would never end. All of a sudden, a bright light appeared in the east. A dazzling sun rose slowly from the east, illuminating the world again. The sun, Gongsun Wuxia, was stunned. The sky turned dark, and the sky turned bright. Everything happened in half a cup of tea's time. She was at a loss. Then, another bright light shone from behind them. Looking back, a blazing sun rose in the west as well. There's a sun in the west, too. Gongsun Wuxia did not continue, because suns had appeared in the south and north. Finally, even a sun appeared above their heads. There were 5 suns in the east, south, west, and center. Gongsun Wuxia opened her mouth wide, unable to comprehend the scene before her. 5 suns? Are we dreaming? That is not a sun, it is a person. We are not dreaming. We are in the 5 elemental heaven extinguishing formation. Beside her, Su Yu sighed deeply, his voice solemn. 5 golden light guards, we meet again. Su Yu looked up at the 5 golden moons. No wonder the spatial disturbances have been going on for days, and no wonder Su Yu felt increasingly restless and uneasy. It turned out that they were here. Back at the frozen river, Su Yu had escaped once by using the space vortex before the 5 elemental heaven extinguishing formation was formed. This time, they had sealed off the 5 elemental heaven extinguishing formation for hundreds of millions of miles. Su Yu had nowhere to run. Swish! The 5 blazing suns emitted extremely dazzling golden light, embellishing the whole world with golden light. Every blade of grass and every tree seemed to be carved from gold. Among the 5 blazing suns, 5 majestic figures, crowned with the sun, moon, and stars on their heads, looked down at Su Yu, who was on the vast land. Chapter 928. Yeah, we meet again. The blazing sun over his head said indifferently, You escaped when we were in the frozen river. I've been looking for you for a whole year. The leader of the bright light guards sighed softly. He was in no hurry to capture Su Yu. In other words, Su Yu was already a fish in the net, so why was there a need to capture him? However, they had never considered whether this fish had the power to tear apart the fishing net. It's the same question as last time. Do you want to come with us, or do you want to bring your dead body back? The leader of the Golden Light Guards was as cold as ever. Su Yu replied calmly, Don't you want to know why the Central Prefecture's king wants to capture me? Dead or alive? The leader of the Bright Light Guards said, We'll only carry out the Central Prefecture's king's orders, and we won't ask for the reason. If you're trying to tempt us, you don't have to waste your breath. How could they not understand that the Central Prefecture's king wanted the 5 of them to work together to capture a small fairy? Moreover, they had to bring him back regardless of whether he was dead or alive. It was obvious that this person had something that the Central Prefecture's king wanted. Furthermore, it was an extremely valuable item. They understood, but they also understood the price of betraying the Central Prefecture's king. No one in the world could save them. Su Yu replied calmly, I'm not trying to tempt you. I just want to ask you why you're helping a villain. Do you know what he did in the Jinlong continent, and what he did to the previous Central Prefecture's king, Shani Qin? The expressions of the 5 Golden Light Guards changed at the same time. The leader of the Golden Light Guards squinted. You know about Shani Qin and the existence of the Jinlong continent? Gongsun Wuxia, who was at the side, rolled her eyes. She had heard many shocking secrets from Su Yu. The previous Central Prefecture's king, Shani Qin, who was about to be crowned as the emperor, unexpectedly died because of the current Central Prefecture's king? Su Yu said, It seems like all of you are aware of this, yet you are still willing to be used by him after all these years. Disappointment could be seen in his eyes. The leader of the Golden Light Guards said indifferently, So what if he knows? The people of the world struggled in the world, who did not want to survive. The Central Prefecture's king is like this, and so are we. So what if he slaughtered hundreds of millions of lives? So what if he plotted against Shinichen? In my opinion, to be able to take a step forward on the path of cultivation, any sacrifice is worth it. Since he can give us the resources we want, we will naturally be used by him. The leader of the Bright Light Guards said, "What's the point of asking so many questions?" To them, a person who was about to die was superfluous. Suyu replied calmly, "Yes, and the meaning behind it is that I am sure that no one has died in vain under my hands." He wouldn't kill innocent people, even if the 5 golden light guards were the central prefecture's king's men. After clarifying the whole story, they were still willing to commit crimes for the central prefecture's king. If they died, Suyu wouldn't blame himself. "Oh, not only do you have the courage to resist us, but you also have the confidence to kill us." The leader of the Bright Light Guards was surprised, and he could not help but laugh. "Young man, your spirit is commendable." Suyu took out a wooden box from his sleeve. When the wooden box appeared, it immediately emitted an incomparably dense, wood-attributed aura. Faint ripples appeared in the deathly still space. Inside the wooden box, there were 3 drops of incomparably pure liquid, each drop as bright as a crystal. Even in the absolute seal of the wooden box, it emitted an incomparable vitality, as if every drop of crystal was the source of life. The Golden Light Guard's leader's smile faded, and he looked shocked. "Life Force Fountain? It's the original life liquid condensed by the all-creation stage 6 and above Mu people." Wisps of blazing heat flickered in the eyes of the 5 golden light guards at the same time. The legendary Life Force Fountain was condensed by the all-creation stage 6 and above Mu people, and it could allow them to live for another 1,000 years. For them, who were in urgent need of a breakthrough, 1,000 years was a rare and precious treasure in the world. "Even if you swallow this thing, it won't protect your life," the leader of the Bright Light Guard said. "Hand it over to us, and we'll give you a quick death." Suyu's eyes were indifferent. He shook his head and said, "You've misunderstood. I swallowed it not to save my life, but to make it easier for me to kill you." When he finished speaking, Suyu took out a drop and swallowed it on the spot. An enormous wave of vitality flooded Suyu's body like a tidal wave. Suyu's old face changed rapidly. His white hair gradually darkened and turned silver. His wrinkled and calm face gradually recovered, becoming the face of an 18-year-old youth. His skin was smooth like jade, his facial features handsome, and his eyes were bright and full of expression, as if the vast starry sky was hidden within. His hands also returned to normal, as fair as jade. In an instant, the old man turned into a handsome, silver-haired youth. Gongsun Wuxia was dumbfounded as she witnessed the transformation. When she stared at Suyu's youthful face, she felt as if a celestial being had descended to the mortal world. His elegance and handsomeness, coupled with his indifferent and otherworldly temperament, made him seem otherworldly. At the same time, his pitch-black eyes gradually changed. His left eye was emitting a faint purple light, while his right eye was a wine red. His eyes were emitting different colors. At first glance, he was definitely not human, which made him look even more mysterious. "It really is you." The pupils of the leader of the Bright Light Guard shrank slightly. The youthful face in front of him was the portrait that the Central Prefecture's king had given them. In the beginning, they had hunted down an old man several times, so they had been apprehensive. But now all their doubts had been dispelled. Suyu stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Even in the face of the 5 great Bright Light Guards, he was calm. "You've been hunting me for a year. It's time to put an end to this," Suyu said. For the past year, there had been a sword hanging over his heart. Today, it was time to face it head-on. The leader of the Bright Light Guards stared at Suyu, who was emitting vitality, and said, "Be careful. He has revealed his real body. Don't be careless. Use the 5 elemental heaven extinguishing formation." The silver-haired youth in front of him had a record of killing the Blood Emperor. Among the 5 of them, only the leader of the Bright Light Guards could exchange 100 blows with the Blood Emperor, while the others would be defeated within 10 blows. Yet, Suyu had been able to erase the Blood Emperor from the world without anyone noticing. So he must have some amazing means. The 5 majestic figures immediately weaved signs with their hands. All of a sudden, the sky was filled with an underworld voice. White clouds were rolling in all directions, and the wind was howling. The space surrounded by the 5 blazing suns was trembling continuously. It was because it was being compressed. In the eyes of Su Yu and Gong Sun Wuxia, the figures of the 5 bright light guards were getting bigger and bigger, and the sky was getting further and further away. In the eyes of the 5 great bright light guards, Su Yu and Gong Sun Wuxia, who had been sealed, were being compressed and gradually shrinking. The 5 elemental heaven extinguishing formation could seal the space and compress it. If it was used in the deepest part of the formation, it could compress a world of 100,000 miles into the size of a palm. Once it was formed, the compressed space would be even more difficult to break. Even an all-creation stage 6 strongman would be firmly sealed, unable to break through the void and escape. However, Su Yu's eyes flickered. His left eye was glowing with a purple light, while his right eye was suffused with a red light. One purple and one red, intertwined into a divine light that blotted out the sky and the sun. It penetrated the compressed space and covered a radius of 100,000 miles. The golden light emitted by the 5 golden light guards could not offset the purple-red light, and they were all engulfed. Time and space flow backward. Su Yu bellowed. The vitality in his body was like a bottomless pit, and 10% of it was rapidly devoured. However, what was shocking was that within the area shrouded by the purple-red light, everything was flowing backward. Outside the formation, a lone goose flew over their heads. After flying for 1,000 feet, it actually flew back. The fish that had jumped out of the water returned to the water in the same way that it had jumped out and then jumped out again. The rolling white clouds flowed backward in an eerie manner. The seal weaved by the 5 golden light guards reversed uncontrollably, returning to the state when they had just weaved the seals. The space, which had clearly been compressed by half, gradually expanded and returned to its normal state. Time was flowing backward, and so was space. Only Su Yu and Gong Sun Wuxia, who was extremely close to him, were not affected. They witnessed the reversal of time and space. Gong Sun Wuxia's big eyes were wide open, as if she was in a dream. She turned her head with difficulty and looked at Su Yu beside her. She had the urge to look up at the god of time and space. Controlling time and space. What kind of great path magical power was this? There was confusion in the eyes of the 5 golden light guards. They clearly remembered that they had already performed the 5 elemental heaven extinguishing formation. But right now they were in such a state. Only the leader of the golden light guards retained the remnants of his memory. He immediately gasped. Time and space are flowing backward. Su Yu nodded lightly. Yes, you must have wondered how Shuedi died. Today, I'll let you experience it once. The wine-red light in his right eye dissipated, and only his left eye shone with purple light. Time flowed backward. Su Yu stared at the 5 golden light guards with his left eye. The boundless rays of the purple clouds locked them firmly. A shocking scene appeared. Their bodies changed at the same time. They degenerated from their middle-aged state to their youthful state. At the same time, their cultivation also degenerated. At the same time, the vast mountains and rivers were also enveloped by the purple clouds. The mountains were shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the land was constantly changing its appearance. The silver lake dried up and turned into mulberry fields. The 1,000-year-old ancient trees degenerated into seedlings and finally into seeds. The mansion of the Situ clan turned into a wasteland from what it once was. Everything had returned to the state it had been hundreds or thousands of years ago. The 5 golden light guards were the same. Before long, their middle-aged bodies turned into middle-aged youths. Their cultivation returned to the state they had been in before. Before this, they had all had the cultivation of all creation stage 2, and the leader of the golden light guards had the terrifying cultivation of all creation stage 3. But now, the 4 golden light guards had regressed to all creation stage 1. The leader of the golden light guards had regressed to all creation stage 2. Their cultivation had been reversed to the state they were in 1,000 years ago, and the process had not stopped. They were still regressing, rapidly transforming into youths. The nature-defying metamorphosis made the 5 golden light guards turn pale with fright. They finally understood how Shwedi had died. He had been erased from the world by someone who had reversed time. Quick, there's no need to capture him alive. Kill him first. The leader of the Golden Light Guards was shocked. He made a prompt decision to give up on capturing him alive and kill him instead. His heart trembled, and a sense of crisis arose. He finally understood why the Central Prefecture's king had sent the 5 of them to hunt him down at the same time. It was because he was too dangerous. Divine Palm of Light. The leader of the Golden Light Guards yelled. The moonlight in his left palm was dreamy, and the sunlight gathered in his right hand. Soon, it condensed into 2 balls of light. It looked like his left hand was holding the Tai Yin, and his right hand was controlling the Tai Yang. Then he put his palms together, and the Tai Yin and the Tai Yang fused into one palm. A ball of light like Tai Chi appeared, emitting light that shrouded the world. Sui was no stranger to this scene. Back then, Shwedi had also used it. Chapter 929. The other 4 Golden Light Guards also performed the heaven-extinguishing Divine Palm, but they could only perform the second style, the Great Moon Palm. Suyu's face was calm. His left eye radiated purple light, and his right eye began to emit a wine-red light. Time and space reversal. Time and space began to reverse. The great moon in the palms of the 4 Golden Light Guards rapidly shrank and returned to the state of sealing. The great sun in the palm of the leader of the Golden Light Guards resisted stubbornly for a moment, then divided into the great sun and the great moon. Then it continued to weaken. Leader, I've reversed to the state of 9th grade Almighty. The 4 Golden Light Guards cried out in horror. Not only had their appearances returned to their youthful state, but their cultivation had also been restored to the state of 9th grade Almighty. They had been beaten back to the level of Almighty from stage 2 of all creations. The leader of the Golden Light Guards was not feeling well either. At this moment, he had fallen to stage 1 of all creations. Now, any of the all creations masters could easily kill the famous 5 Golden Light Guards. At this moment, the 5 Golden Light Guards felt a life and death crisis. They had never felt such a strong sense of crisis before. Take out your treasures and talismans immediately and kill them, the leader of the Golden Light Guards bellowed. All the Almighty, including him, immediately took out a large number of treasures and talismans, all of which were powerful objects with boundless power. However, what made their hearts beat wildly was that as soon as they were taken out, they were immediately affected by the time reversal. The talismans had not been detonated, but they were immediately returned to the state of ordinary white paper under the reverse of time. From white paper, they were turned into raw materials, and then from raw materials, they turned into nothingness. As for those treasures, the spirituality that they had painstakingly cultivated, as soon as they were taken out, they were returned to the state before they were born. Their spirituality was greatly lost, and the treasures gradually degenerated into the state of raw materials. No matter what they took out, they were returned to their final state by the reverse of time. As for the 5 Golden Light Guards, time was still reversing. The 4 Golden Light Guards had returned from 9th grade Almighty to 8th grade Almighty, then from 8th grade Almighty to 7th grade Almighty, then from 7th grade Almighty to 6th grade Almighty. Their appearances had returned to the state of their 18-year-old youth. As for the leader of the Bright Light Guards, he had also regressed back to his 18-year-old self. His cultivation had finally broken through the all creations and returned to the stage of an 8th grade Almighty. At this moment, a great crisis surged in the hearts of the 5 people of Golden Light. Unprecedented fear and uneasiness filled the depths of their hearts. From the all creations, old monsters revered by billions of people, they had fallen to the middle and late stage divine masters. This kind of fear was like falling off a cliff. The fear of stepping on air reappeared in their hearts after thousands of years. As for Suyu, there was still a surplus of life force in his body, so he continued flowing them backward. The leader of the Golden Light Guard shouted, "Stop! Do you really want to fight to the death?" They were afraid. A moment ago, they were the net, while Suyu was the fish. Now, Suyu was the net, while they were the struggling fish. When they were in the form of a net, They treated Su Yu as an ant like gods. Now that it was their turn to become fish in the net, they were terrified. Su Yu replied indifferently, "Even if the fish dies, the net might not be broken." Shua, the leader of the Golden Light Guards, quickly took out a badge from his space ring. The badge shone with a golden light, and the words Central Prefecture were carved on it. It emitted wisps of frightening spiritual pressure. As for the token, it didn't change at all despite the time reversal. It wasn't affected at all. Su Yu was very familiar with this badge, as he had almost died because of it in the past. This was because this badge could summon the projection of the Central Prefecture's king. Su Yu couldn't forget that irresistible divine power. However, at this moment, Su Yu was calm. "Fine, I haven't seen the Central Prefecture's king for a long time. Let him show himself." The leader of the Golden Light Guards clenched his teeth. He couldn't care less about where Su Yu's calmness came from, so he activated it. All of a sudden, the golden badge cracked open, and a ball of light shot out, projecting itself into the sky. A human figure, whose whole body was emitting golden light, suddenly appeared. The human figure was too dazzling, and it was difficult to look at it directly. It was impossible to see its face clearly. They could only vaguely see that it was a youth dressed in a golden yellow robe, who was sitting cross-legged in a secret chamber. "Fifth guard, who is blocking your way again." The projection slowly opened its eyes. When they were fully opened, it saw the scene before it, and its eyes shone brightly. The figure, who was sitting cross-legged, stood up abruptly, and its eyes were fixed on Su Yu. "We meet again." The corners of the Central Prefecture's king's mouth curled up slightly, and an excited look appeared on his face. However, he quickly noticed the situation of the 5 guards, and his brows furrowed. "Stop." The 5 Golden Light Guards were his rare subordinates, and he had spent a great deal of effort to nurture them. However, they had been tormented by Su Yu to this state. Su Yu was more dangerous than he had imagined. It was no wonder that the Blood Emperor had died at his hands. Su Yu had no intention of stopping. He activated the last wisp of vitality and continued to make the 5 Golden Light Guards go back in time. The Central Prefecture's king's eyes turned cold. "Fine. I gave them the badge of the projection clone with the intention of guarding against you. Now that you have shown up, don't even think about escaping this time." The Central Prefecture's king raised his hand and pressed down on the screen. All of a sudden, the space of 10,000 miles around Su Yu froze in an instant. It was as if the surroundings were pressed down by an invisible mountain. The space was motionless, and Su Yu couldn't even activate the space vortex. At this time, the Central Prefecture's king was more than 1 trillion miles away from this place. However, a trace of the projection's power was far superior to the 5 elemental heaven extinguishing formation that had been jointly set up by the 5 Golden Light Guards. What kind of height had the strength of the Central Prefecture's king reached? After blocking Su Yu's escape route, the Central Prefecture's king grabbed Su Yu coldly. A majestic force grabbed Su Yu. To be precise, it was grabbing the divine 9-dragon cauldron in the depths of Su Yu's soul, trying to seize it from the air. The same scene happened again. However, this time, it was different. Su Yu retrieved a golden leaf from the 9-jade spiritual pearl with one hand and threw it into the air. The delicate and small golden leaf grew with the wind and quickly became 1,000 feet in size, gently blocking the light screen. The force that was grabbing Su Yu's soul stopped abruptly. In the Central Prefecture's palace, 1 trillion miles away, in a secret chamber, the Central Prefecture's king's face suddenly turned pale. His body trembled slightly, and he immediately withdrew his palm. In the center of his palm, a golden leaf imprint was faintly discernible. To his surprise, the golden leaf imprint was actually decomposing the energy in his body. In just a few breaths, 1/10 of his power had been decomposed by the golden leaf. This made the Central Prefecture's king's face change. With a low growl, he operated a mysterious force and forcibly erased the golden leaf imprint. The imprint turned into a golden grain and returned to the other side of the light screen. The leaf of the divine tree? How did he get it? The Central Prefecture's king composed himself and asked in surprise. He stared at the image on the other side, his expression changing constantly. Although the golden leaf had blocked the light screen, it did not prevent the Central Prefecture's king from seeing the situation on the other side. So you could also clearly feel that the Central Prefecture's king was still paying attention to this place. At that moment, the vitality contained in a drop of Enmu's fountain of life had finally been completely consumed. Looking at the 5 golden light guards again, they were all teenagers of 15 or 16 years old. The 4 golden light guards were all naked because their clothes had long been destroyed in the reversal of time. At that moment, they looked like 4 frightened teenagers, looking at Suyu in horror. Their cultivation had been forcibly reversed to the 3rd grade Almighty. As for the leader of the golden light guards, he had been reversed back to the 5th grade Almighty. In fact, from their bodies, one could see how talented they had been when they were young. They had reached the middle stage Almighty at the age of 15 or 16. Looking at Jojo, there were only a handful of them. The leader of the Golden Light Guards also stared at Suyu in horror. Even the projection of the Central Prefecture's king had been sealed by him. A deep chill surged from the soles of his feet to his whole body. Central Prefecture's king, I have some small gifts for you. The light in Suyu's left eye dimmed, and moonlight condensed on his right palm, forming a bright moon. Pow! Suyu slapped it casually, and his palm bombarded the body of the nearest Golden Light Guard. The poor Golden Light Guard had no time to react, and his body was destroyed by the palm. His soul escaped, but it was suppressed by Suyu into the soul dimension, becoming a tonic for the evil god. It was a pity that, as an all-creation stage 2 peerless strongman, his cultivation had regressed due to the reversal of time and space. Even the cultivation technique that he had cultivated in the past had been reversed to the state before he had cultivated it. Stop it, the Central Prefecture's king said in a stern voice, his eyes surging with anger. In his eyes, Suyu had always been an ant, not worth mentioning. But now, this ant had killed the subordinate that he had cultivated with great care in front of him. Moreover, he had used the heaven-extinguishing divine palm, the ultimate skill of the Central Prefecture's guards. This deliberate humiliation made the Central Prefecture's king angry for the first time. Haha, it's not over yet. Suyu smiled faintly. The wings on his back fluttered, and like a phantom, he performed the heaven-extinguishing divine palm repeatedly. Every time he paused, a golden light guard was killed. Wait, I won't trouble you anymore. Please let me go. What do you want us to do? I'll kill you. An unprecedented scene unfolded. The infamous 5 golden light guards were being massacred by a strong martial artist of the fairy realm. The 4 great golden light guard were killed by the heaven-extinguishing divine palm, regardless of whether they begged or resisted. Moreover, their bodies were shattered, and their souls were suppressed. Gongsun Wuxia, who had witnessed the scene with her own eyes, was stunned and speechless for a long time. When she looked at Suyu, the look in her eyes had completely changed. She was filled with anticipation and excitement. And Suyu's face was covered in blood, and he smiled coldly as he looked at the leader of the Golden Light Guards. The leader of the Golden Light Guards had a grave look on his face, and he said in a low voice, "What is the meaning of your massacre?" In other words, Suyu had an unfair advantage. Suyu asked in reply, "Do you think I'm despicable, cruel, and unfair?" Then, when you, the 5 great Golden Light Guards, hunted down a weak fairy junior and tried to take his life at every turn, did you ever feel that you were despicable, cruel, and unfair? Moreover, I'm the same age as all of you now. What's unfair about that? Being massacred by me only means that you were too incompetent when you were my age, Suyu said. Compared to their age, Suyu had killed them like slaughtering chickens and dogs. Chapter 9:30. In order to survive, he had no other choice. Of course, as a 1,000-year-old monster, how could he be willing to submit to a weakling other than absolute strength? He had many ways to undo the control, even if it was soul control. No need. However, what caused his expression to change drastically was that Suyu did not even think twice. Suyu grabbed the bloody bone palm and slapped it on his body. Puff! The The leader of the Golden Light Guards let out a blood-curdling scream as his body was smashed into pieces. Even his soul was not left behind. There were two reasons for killing him. Firstly, he had lived for thousands of years and was proficient in many techniques. Suyu was not sure if the Son of Heaven's imperial soul could be countered. Secondly, unlike Meng Tian, Suyu had absolute prestige, which made him submit to him willingly. However, the leader of the Bright Light Guards, an all-creation's old monster in the past, would he really follow a fairy junior without any complaints? After slaughtering the 5 Golden Light Guards, Suyu looked at the light screen indifferently. How's the gift? The Central Prefecture's king watched Suyu's actions indifferently. Then his majestic figure twisted in the light screen and gradually dissipated. He said indifferently, "I accept your gift. When I come out of isolation, I will find you in person." Pop! The light and shadow shattered, leaving only the calm words of the Central Prefecture's king. The Central Prefecture's king was going to kill Suyu in person. "I'll be waiting for you at any time," Suyu said calmly. At this moment, the golden leaves gradually dissipated and turned into golden particles. Suyu felt that it was a pity. The tree god had 3 original leaves, and every time he used one, he would have one less. However, thanks to the golden leaf, Suyu's life was saved just now. Otherwise, he would have no chance of surviving when facing the projection of the Central Prefecture's king. Looking at the drifting golden grains, Suyu shook his head and was about to turn around to collect the relics of the 5 Golden Light Guards. However, all of a sudden, Suyu caught a glimpse of a special particle. The rest of the granules were golden in color and appeared very dim. Only this pellet was not only very full, but it also contained traces of a terrifying aura. That aura was different from the mighty power of all creations. It was an even more powerful and mysterious aura. Suyu was curious, and he kept the golden bead. The moment he touched it, he felt his heart palpitate. It was as if he was facing a terrifying, strong martial artist. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva fiercely, Suyu kept the golden pellet properly, preparing to study it later. Then, he packed up the 5 Great Bright Light Guards' belongings. Suyu had taken all of their space rings. Finally, Suyu looked at Gongsun Wuxia. She was still looking at Suyu, while her face was filled with excitement. "Are you the person who killed the Blood Emperor?" Suyu frowned. Gongsun Wuxia had heard everything from the side, and she knew a lot of his trump cards. Suyu was hesitant about how to deal with Gongsun Wuxia. The most rational thing to do would be to silence Gongsun Wuxia, but this was also the last thing Suyu could do. "Yes," Suyu said indifferently, staring at Gongsun Wuxia, his mind racing. Gongsun Wuxia blushed when she heard this, and she looked shy for the first time. Her long eyelashes fluttered as she asked, Then, in Tianya City, it was you who saved me from the hands of the ghost Buddha, and you suffered a blow?" She was still unaware of the danger she was in. Suyu thought for a moment, then nodded. "Yes." All of a sudden, Gongsun Wuxia's face was flushed with excitement. The Suyu she hated turned out to be the ruthless demonic man, the mysterious youth whom she couldn't stop thinking about. Gongsun Wuxia accepted Suyu's explanation easily because she had sensed the familiarity of the ruthless demonic man from Suyu a long time ago. She had also witnessed the process of Suyu's transformation from an old man to a handsome youth, as well as his domineering manner in which he killed the famous 5 Great Bright Light Guards. She had already guessed most of it. Now, she just wanted to get confirmation from Suyu. "Oh yeah, Brother Yuxian is the ruthless demonic man." Gongsun Wuxia's face was filled with excitement, and she jumped up and down excitedly. It was as if she was happier than if she had become the ruthless demonic man herself. "Is it worth being so happy about?" Suyu asked. Gongsun Wuxia walked over with a smile and nodded. "Yes, I'm happy. I've always wanted to see you again, but I didn't expect you to be by my side all this time. Now that I think about it, how could there be such a coincidence in this world? I happened to be in danger, and the ruthless demonic man was passing by. He saved me and even took a palm strike for me." The corners of Gongsun Wuxia's mouth curled into a smile, and she looked relieved. "I should have known that the ruthless demonic man was actually Brother Yuxian." As she spoke, Gongsun Wuxia approached him, and the faint fragrance from her body wafted into his nose. She blinked her long eyelashes and asked, "Can you let me see that curse?" Suyu did not refuse. Spiritual energy revolved in his chest, and a ghostly face in the shape of an evil ghost appeared indistinctly. Gongsun Wuxia bit her lip, and an apologetic smile appeared on her face. "It's him. It's really him." Gongsun Wuxia's heart was filled with mixed feelings. She had always treated people with an innocent face, but now, a complicated expression that only a young girl could have appeared on her face. "I've found a way to stabilize the curse, and it will be removed when the time is right. Don't worry too much," Suyu said. Upon hearing that, Gongsun Wuxia revealed a serene smile. Yes, would the ruthless demonic man who could obliterate the 5 great golden light guards and Xue Di be trapped by a small curse? Taking a light breath, Gongsun Wuxia raised her head. Her eyes, which were as bright as purple gemstones, blinked gently as she fixed her gaze on Suyu. It was as if she was trying to engrave the handsome, silver-haired figure in the depths of her mind and never forget it. After a while, she slowly closed her eyes and said, "Come on, I'm ready." Suyu looked down at her. "You know what I'm going to do?" "Yes." Gongsun Wuxia nodded and forced a smile. "Brother Yuxian, you've made an enemy of the Central Prefecture's king, and you've been hiding your identity until now. You don't want people other than yourself to know, do you? You also want to keep the matter of getting rid of the 5 great golden light guard a secret. I saw it, so I won't live. There had always been only one kind of person who could keep a secret, and that was the dead. Most living people were not reliable, and even if they were, there was a certain chance that their souls would be searched and their memories discovered. Gongsun Wuxia had witnessed everything and was prepared to be silenced. Aren't you afraid of death? Suyu stared at her and asked. Gongsun Wuxia's petite and thin body swayed. I am, but I'm content. Anyway, because of my physique, I won't live for long. I'm content to see the ruthless, demonic people before I die. Besides, I'm dying to keep your secret. She was still young, but she was already prepared to face death and appeared very calm. Suyu stared at her and was silent for a long time. Do you have any last wishes? Gongsun Wuxia thought about it and shook her head. Then, she nodded again. I want to know your real name. Her intuition told her that Su Yuxian must be a fake name. Suyu was silent for a long time, so long that Gongsun Wuxia's face was full of disappointment. Then, a gentle voice reached her ears. The people of Jiuzhou call me Su Yuxian, and the people of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion call me Yinyu. Only the people of my hometown call me by my real name, Suyu. Suyu, Suyu. Gongsun Wuxia whispered it twice, and her delicate face glowed again. She smiled sweetly. So that's your name. I have no last wishes. Come on. Then, she closed her eyes again. A pair of fan-like eyelashes fluttered gently in the wind, showing the fear and terror in the depths of her heart. Not fearing death was just a facade. Yes. Suyu nodded, reached out a finger, and flicked it on her forehead. Then he retracted it. It's over. Feeling the pain, Gongsun Wuxia rubbed her forehead and opened her eyes. Don't you want to kill me? Suyu said calmly. There's no need for that. Since he had decided to leave the Red Blood Palace, what was the point of Gongsun Wuxia knowing or not? Gongsun Wuxia's eyes gradually brightened, like a luminous pearl. Suyu glanced around. The 5 great golden light guards were dead, and the space that had sealed this part of the world had already dispersed. People from the Shangwan family and the Red Blood Palace were arriving one after another. Wuxia, farewell. Take care of yourself. Suyu cupped his hands at her, stepped into the void, and chose to leave. Gongsun Wuxia stared at his back, her small face full of smiles. After a long while, she crushed a jade pendant. Soon, an old man dressed in a linen robe came across the void. The old man looked anxious. When he saw that Gongsun Wuxia was safe and sound, he heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he said with concern, Young Cliff Master, why did you only crush the jade pendant now and transmit your location? The 5 great divine guards of the Central Prefecture sealed this space, and I thought you were trapped. The old man was the All Creation's elder who had been secretly protecting Gongsun Wuxia for a long time. He was also the hidden senior Lan of the outer sanctum that Suyu knew. However, in order to train Gongsun Wuxia, he would not protect her closely. He would only appear when she was in trouble. However, the 5 great divine guards of the central prefecture had appeared too abruptly, and the chaotic space had caused him to lose track of Gongsun Wuxia. Gongsun Wuxia smiled. "I'm fine, and I'm glad that those old things came to make trouble." Senior Lan frowned. "Young Cliff Master, have you seen the 5 great divine guards of the central prefecture? Does that mean that they recognized you and didn't dare to do anything to you?" If the 5 great divine guards of the central prefecture had recognized Gongsun Wuxia, they would have fled long ago. Gongsun Wuxia was not that easy to kill. She had a treasure on her that could summon the projection of the severed fairy Cliff Master. The All Creation's old monsters who knew her identity did not dare to lay a finger on her. Gongsun Wuxia shook her head with a smile. "No, I didn't recognize me." "Oh, that's strange. The 5 great divine guards of the central prefecture are not good people, and they are very vicious. In Jiuzhou, they are as vicious and merciless as the Blood Emperor. If they didn't recognize you, why would they let you go?" Senior Lan said as he twirled his beard. Gongsun Wuxia was overjoyed. It was as if she had learned another secret about the ruthless, demonic people. Who knows? Maybe they were busy with other things and didn't pay attention to me. Senior Lan thought about it. Despite his doubts, he could only accept this explanation. The 5 great divine guards of the central prefecture are using their unique skill, the 5 elemental heaven extinguishing formation. It seems that they have sealed a large space to capture someone or a demonic beast. It makes sense that they didn't pay attention to you. Chapter 9:31. Gongsun Wuxia's face darkened, and she said, "It's not over yet. We agreed to wait for the glittering jewel perilous realm. There's still 2 months left." Senior Lan looked at Gongsun Wuxia in surprise, only feeling that she seemed to have changed somehow. He thought for a moment and said, "There are only 2 months left. After the glittering jewel adventure realm, you will follow me back to the severed fairy cliff's headquarters." Gongsun Wuxia nodded and said hurriedly, "Hurry up and send me back to the Red Blood Palace." "Oh, is there something urgent?" Senior Lan was puzzled. Gongsun Wuxia glared at him. "Why are you asking so many questions?" Senior Lan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He immediately tore open the space with Gongsun Wuxia, and they returned to the Red Blood Palace in just a few hours. As soon as she landed, Gongsun Wuxia flew back to the Demon Mountain. She pushed open the door to the central courtyard, which was deserted. It was exactly the same as before Suyu had left. Looking at the empty courtyard, Gongsun Wuxia had a desolate look on her face. "He won't come back, will he?" Gongsun Wuxia muttered. Now that his identity had been exposed, for the sake of safety, he would not return. Gongsun Wuxia couldn't think of anything else in the Red Blood Palace that was worth Suyu staying. How could an existence that could control time and space and easily kill the 5 great Golden Light Guards tolerate a great figure like Suyu? For a moment, Gongsun Wuxia regretted knowing Suyu's hidden identity so early. Silver Lake. Suyu returned to his old body, turned around, and returned to the Situ family's sky fortress. The formation was still there, and Lady Situ had also rushed back with some of her clansmen. She was busy preparing the supplies. Seeing that Suyu had returned from afar, the worried look on Lady Situ's face eased. She closed the formation for a moment to let Suyu in. "I'm relieved that you're fine." Lady Situ stepped forward and held Suyu's hands. She then said with emotion, "You're really lucky to have escaped from the Shao's family master's hands. Now, I'll order my people to collect the remaining resources and leave with me." Feeling Lady Situ's exquisite and tender hand, Suyu couldn't help but have a strange feeling in his heart, so he pulled his hand away. Lady Situ also realized that her action was inappropriate, so she looked slightly embarrassed. Suyu changed the topic and asked, "Madam, what do you plan to settle down with your people?" Upon hearing this, Lady Situ's frown reappeared. She said bitterly, "The blessed and heavenly lands are in turmoil. It's not a good idea to stay here any longer. I want to lead my family to the lifeless sword domain to seek refuge. It was easy to say, but extremely difficult to do. Which resource-rich place in the lifeless sword domain was not occupied by others? If the Sidhu clan migrated there, they would definitely be regarded as intruders. Being ostracized would be a small matter, but it would be more serious if they provoked the enemy powerhouses to attack them. Coupled with the fact that the family had lost more than half of its elites, the situation was even less optimistic. "Madam, you don't have to move it," Suyu said as he crushed the jade pendant. Not long after, the ferocious birds covered the sky and arrived. When Lady Sidhu saw this scene from afar, her expression changed drastically. "Meng Tian, family members, be on guard immediately." She was extremely surprised and bewildered. Could it be that after Meng Tian escaped, he made a comeback with the Shao clan's master? "Madam, don't be impatient." Suyu patted Lady Situ's shoulder. The ferocious bird stopped 1,000 miles away and did not come any closer. A figure quickly rushed over and landed outside the formation. Meng Tian's face was filled with helplessness. After he left, he rushed toward Tianya City while collecting the flying beast that got lost along the way. However, he didn't expect that the spatial turbulence would become more and more intense, causing him to get lost in it. Even after half a day, he didn't manage to get far. It wasn't until the spatial disorder subsided that he managed to gather most of the flying beasts. Then, he received a message from Suyu. His face was full of embarrassment. "Master, I'm sorry. I haven't gone to Tianya City yet." Suyu said, "Yes, I know. That's why I summoned you to come back midway." Lady Situ was stunned. What did Meng Tian call Suyu? "Master." "Lady Situ, let him in," Suyu said. Lady Situ was stunned. She quickly closed the formation for a moment, her eyes fixed on the huge army of ferocious birds hovering in the distance. "Meng Tian, this is Lady Situ. You've met her before." Suyu pointed at Lady Situ. Meng Tian was embarrassed. Not long ago, he was the enemy who had exterminated his family. Meng Tian pays his respects to Madam. "If I have offended you before, I hope you can forgive me." Meng Tian bowed. Lady Situ stared at him and subconsciously thought of the 7 passions, forgotten worries elixir. Feeling ashamed and resentful, she let out a muffled humph. "Madam, Meng Tian has served me, and so have the many birds. After he returns from Tianya City, he will stay here to train and protect you. With the power of the ferocious birds, no one will dare to invade the blessed and heavenly lands except for the Red Blood Palace and the Purple Cloud Palace. So you can rest assured," Suyu said. Lady Situ's heart was thumping. "Are you saying that those birds will protect the Situ family?" Having seen the power of the birds with her own eyes, how could Lady Situ not be tempted? But was Meng Tian trustworthy? She couldn't help but feel doubtful. Meng Tian said sheepishly, "Madam Situ, don't worry. Meng Tian is willing to follow you. Moreover, my life is at your mercy. I will obey your orders and protect the Situ family. I will not dare to act recklessly." Upon hearing such an answer, Lady Situ looked at Suyu in confusion. Suyu nodded. "Is it necessary for me to harm you?" Lady Situ's expression softened, and excitement appeared in her eyes. The power of those ferocious birds was enough to rival the 16 great factions. If that was really the case, the Situ clan would definitely be able to rally the support of countless small and medium-sized clans among the other clans and forces. The Situ family could become the overlord of a region overnight. After all, who would dare to recklessly attack the Situ family? However, Lady Situ understood that everything depended on Suyu's will. If he ordered Meng Tian to leave, who would continue to rely on the Situ family? With a single thought, he could beat the Situ family back to its original state. All of a sudden, she seemed to understand Suyu's intentions. Also, write a letter of divorce and inform the Shangwan family to build a new mansion in the vicinity, Suyu said. Lady Situ was even more certain of her suspicions. Suyu's intention was to gather all the family influences for his own use. His ambition was not small at all. However, Lady Situ had some reservations about inviting the Shangwan family over. May I ask, Mr. Su, with so many families gathered here, who will be the leader? When the family influences gather together, if there is no one to give orders, there will be chaos. She hoped that Suyu would support the Situ family. No one, Suyu said. Lady Situ fell silent. Suyu looked at her and said, if you think you must choose a family that can be the leader, I'm inclined to support the Shangwan family. I ordered Meng Tian to guard this place with the intention of protecting the Shangwan family. Shangwan Yunk has done me a favor, and I once promised to protect the Shangwan family in times of danger. However, the Shangwan family's mansion was destroyed, and they had nowhere to go, so I suggested that they move here. Meng Tian can also take care of the Situ family, which is the best of both worlds. If you're not satisfied, I will order Meng Tian to lead the army to find a new place for the Shangwan family to thrive. Whether the Situ family wants to move, there is up to you. Lady Situ's face turned pale. It turned out that Suyu really wanted to protect the Shangwan family, and the Situ family was just incidentally there. It was ridiculous that she thought that Suyu had come here specifically to protect the Situ family. This cold water sobered Lady Situ up a lot. Suyu had no need to protect the Situ family. The two of them had only crossed paths, and her request just now was really presumptuous. Lady Situ bowed and saluted him. I've been rude. I'll listen to your arrangements. She couldn't help but look at Meng Tian. If that was the case, Meng Tian would be the one in charge, and he represented Suyu. All right, since I'm going to look for the Shangwan family's master, I'll wait in your mansion. After Suyu finished speaking, he landed and entered the courtyard to regulate his breathing. After the great battle, he was a little tired. Lady Situ didn't dare to delay any longer. She ordered people to search for the people of the Shangwan family. At the same time, her eyes flashed and locked onto Meng Tian. Suppressing the displeasure in her heart, she walked over and said, Mr. Meng, please take care of me in the future. Meng Tian glanced at Lady Situ and said with a faint smile, Madam, you've come to me instead of asking for help from the master. Lady Situ looked at Suyu, who had entered the house to rest, and smiled bitterly. The Situ family can't give him what he wants. With Suyu's cultivation, all kinds of magical powers, and a nature-defying space-ancient spiritual body, the resources of the Situ family were nothing to him. Meng Tian, on the other hand, could give him more crystals and resources. Meng Tian smiled. Of course the Situ family can't give it, but Lady Situ can. Why don't you give it a try? If the master is happy, the benefits will be endless. Lady Situ's eyes sharpened as she stared at Meng Tian coldly. She understood what he meant. I'm only responsible for pointing out a clear path. Whether you want to do it or not, it's up to you. Meng Tian laughed, then turned around and walked away with a smile. Lady Situ bit her red lips and remained silent for a long time. The Situ family was very efficient. At dusk, the Shangwan family's master and a group of elders were invited. Everyone was sitting in the house. The Shangwan family's master was seriously injured, and the elders didn't look too good. To Suyu's surprise, Shangwan Yunk and Shangwan Qing'er had returned. They must have come back with Palace Master Hua and Palace Master Kong Chan to reinforce the Shangwan family. They sat on the left side, while the Situ family sat on the right. Suyu sat alone at the head of the table, while Meng Tian stood behind him. Everyone in the house was looking at Suyu, waiting for him to give orders. Shangwan family's master, the original mansion of the Shangwan family, has been destroyed. Why don't we build a mansion nearby? On one hand, we can take care of the Situ family, and on the other hand, Meng Tian can protect us. What do you think? Suyu suggested. The Shangwan family's master stood up solemnly, cupped his fists, and bowed. Yes, sir. He didn't look like he was talking to a junior. He was talking to a strong senior. The unprecedented combat power that Suyu had displayed in the Situ family had really shocked them. His various techniques, especially his space spiritual body, had shocked the world. Moreover, Suyu had subdued a terrifying beast tamer like Meng Tian, whose strength was comparable to a faction. In front of Suyu, the Shangwan family was much weaker. Upon seeing his father's reaction, Shangwan Yunk wore a gloating look on his face. In the past, he had imparted his family's 5 elements mysteries art to Su Yu in the hopes that he could get Su Yu's protection during a great calamity. However, he had been severely punished by his father and the elders of the family. He was even prepared to go to the Red Blood Palace to ask Su Yu for the 5 elements profound meanings art. Chapter 932. Master, you don't have to be so polite. Since you agree, it's easy. Discuss with Lady Situ and choose a suitable location to rebuild the family. Remember, don't affect the Situ family to avoid unnecessary conflict, Su Yu said. With his current prestige, this matter could be easily resolved. After that, Su Yu left the meeting room and returned to his room to think about his future plans. Now that the 5 golden light guards had been destroyed and the Central Prefecture's king had witnessed Su Yu's tree god's leaf, he would certainly not send all creation's old monsters to hunt him down. He was safe for the time being, and there was no urgent reason to leave the faction. Should he return to the faction and continue his training? The only problem was that he had exposed too much in the previous battle, and even his spatial talents had been discovered. Would there be any abnormalities when he returned to the faction? Just like that, Su Yu thought about his future path. What he did not know was that on this night, the Jojo continent was in an uproar. A piece of shocking news came from the Central Prefecture. The 5 great divine guards of the Central Prefecture were slaughtered, and none of them escaped. The news spread like thunder to the ears of all the great forces of Jojo in just one day. It caused a huge commotion. The 5 great divine guards of the Central Prefecture were all the strongest men in the world. When the 5 of them joined forces, they were invincible. Apart from a certain prefecture's king, it was difficult for anyone to kill them. For a moment, there were many speculations. The suspicion was focused on the 9 great prefecture's kings and 2 other peerless men. One was the Duanxian Cliffmaster, and the other was Mo Tianxian. The 2 of them were the only ones who could possibly destroy the 5 golden light guards, except for the 9 great prefecture's kings. The biggest suspect was undoubtedly Mo Tianxian, who had been hostile to the Central Prefecture for years. When the news reached Mo Tianxuan's ears, she was shocked. It's not the Duanxian Cliffmaster, nor me. Is it the 9 great prefecture's king? She naturally understood that the 5 golden light guards were not killed by her, nor by the Duanxian Cliffmaster, who was in isolation. However, apart from them, only the 9 great prefecture's king had such absolute power. As she was thinking, the great palace master of the outside sanctum brought the seriously injured cabinet master Kongchan and palace master Hua to see her. He told her about the turmoil near the Situ and Shangwan families. It's this force again. What are they trying to do in the blessed and heavenly lands? Mo Tianxian vaguely sensed the existence of this force. It's been 2 or 3 days. Why did you only report it now? Mo Tianxian was very concerned about this force. The Void Cicada cabinet mistress said, "Please punish me, palace mistress. After I escaped, I was trapped in a chaotic space region, and I didn't get out for 2 days and 2 nights. It was only when the chaotic space ended a day ago that I managed to rush back." Upon hearing this, Mo Tianxuan's eyes shone. Chaotic space? Tell me the details. Then, Cabinet Master Kongchan explained everything in detail. It's the 5 elemental heaven extinguishing formation. They must be arresting someone. Mo Tianxian had long been puzzled as to why the 5 great bright light guards would linger around the blessed and heavenly lands and not leave for a long time. Looking at it now, even the 5-element heaven extinguishing formation was activated. It must be to seal space and search for a certain person. This person was most likely the one who had wiped out the 5 great bright light guards. Regarding the Shao clan that has rebelled, I'll leave it to you guys to handle it. I'm going to scene to take a look myself. Mo Tianxuan's eyes gleamed. She tore apart the void with one hand and disappeared. In the sky castle of the Situ family, Lady Situ had changed into a long silver silk robe, and a light purple belt was tied around her waist. It accentuated her graceful and beautiful figure, which was extremely alluring. She had thought about it for a long time. She felt that this was a great opportunity for the Sidhu family to become an overlord. If she could gain Su Yu's approval, the influences that were attached to Meng Tian in the future. No, even Meng Tian himself would listen to her orders. Then, the Sidhu family would no longer have any worries. Therefore, after struggling in her heart for a long time, she finally decided to serve Su Yu with her body and become his woman. She knocked on the door, but there was only silence in the room. Creak! With a gentle push, the door opened. There was no one in the room, except for a snow-white letter with a line of small words. "I'll take my leave now. See you again." Lady Situ was startled. She sat on the edge of the bed and sighed deeply. Su Yu had left the Sky Castle early in the night. After settling the matters of the Shangwan family, he felt relaxed. The only thing he had left in the blessed and heavenly lands was the alluring cabinet master. This woman was the only one who knew that Su Yu was going to leave the Red Blood Palace. She was also the only one who saw him off, and she was the only one who had given him all her savings. Su Yu was deeply moved by her words. A martial artist's life is like a firefly's light in the world of mortals, and it will be extinguished in an instant. I hope that you can come back to see me in your lifetime, regardless of whether you are my person or my grave. He didn't want to see a grave instead of a person when he looked back at her. After pondering for a whole night, Su Yu decided to rush to the Heavenly Knife region to inquire about the alluring cabinet master's safety. He left overnight, crossing the Silver Lake that had turned into a mulberry field. After flying over the Silver Lake for a short while, Su Yu gradually came to a stop. He looked back and was silent for a moment. "You've been following me for so long. Aren't you going to show yourself?" The Silver Lake was calm. After a few breaths, a pitch-black crack in the space appeared. A purple figure stepped out of it. She was beautiful and refined, dressed in a purple robe, and looked like a fairy. A pair of clear, watery eyes shone like crystals. "Should I call you Su Yuxian, or Yin or Su Yu?" the purple-robed woman asked. This was what Su Yu had told Gongsun Wuxia. At that time, the purple-robed woman had been there. "Since you already know, I'll call you Su Yu." Su Yu looked at her, his eyes filled with pity and helplessness. The purple-robed woman suddenly became fierce. "Even your name is fake. It was you who killed Uncle Blood Emperor." Su Yu said calmly, "Didn't you already know when you pretended to be a golden light guard in the fairy confining forest?" The purple-robed woman before him was none other than Zishuan. Zishuan asked, "How did you know that I pretended to be a golden light guard?" In fact, it was only yesterday that Su Yu understood. When he had gone to meet the silver-masked man at the severed fairy cliff, he had encountered a golden light guard. However, he hadn't tried to kill Su Yu. Instead, he had left on his own. That question had been lingering in Su Yu's mind. It wasn't until yesterday, when he used the power of time and space to obliterate the Golden Light Guard, that he realized that none of the 5 great Golden Light Guards' auras matched those of the people in the fairy confining forest. It was only then that Su Yu realized that he hadn't met a Golden Light Guard in the fairy confining forest that day. Someone had pretended to be a Golden Light Guard, and they had found out that Su Yu was the wanted criminal who had killed Blood Emperor. There was only one person who was familiar with the Golden Light Guard and had the ability to disguise as one. It was Zishuan. Ever since she had come back from the Yuling Mountain, Su Yu had felt that she had changed. She wasn't as silly and adorable as before. "I trusted you so much, and I relied on you to find the murderer. I didn't expect that you would be the person I was looking for," Zishuan said coldly. As she recalled the past, Zishuan felt like she had been deceived. "Are you going to kill me?" Su Yu asked. He still had to protect Xia Jingyu and Qin Xiener, so he wouldn't die here. Zishuan's whole body trembled slightly, and her eyes were filled with complicated emotions. The past was fleeting, but he had given Zishuan a vague friendship, so she couldn't kill him. "Can you tell me why you wanted to kill Uncle Blood Emperor?" "He watched me grow up, and in my eyes, he was the kindest grandfather I had ever had," Zishuan said. "Why did you want to kill him?" "Kindest is only for you, but for me and the living creatures of the Jinlong continent, he was the bloodiest, most vicious, and most cruel murderer. How many billions of living creatures have died at his hands? I killed him just to avenge him." So you said, Zixuan's eyes shone with a fierce light. You're lying. He's not that kind of person. Her cold shout shattered the mountains within a radius of 1,000 miles, and her murderous intent and anger were released silently. Suyu was not afraid, and he said calmly, You know in your heart whether I'm talking nonsense or not. You don't have to deceive yourself. Zixuan's delicate body trembled, and she was speechless. She had grown up in the palace of the central prefecture, and all she did was practice and practice. She had almost no contact with the outside world. In her eyes, the central prefecture's king and the Blood Emperor were the closest and kindest people. However, after escaping from the palace and entering the world, she had more or less heard of the Blood Emperor. He had killed countless people, and his methods were extremely cruel. He was tyrannical and full of evil deeds. Therefore, after she had found out Suyu's true identity in the fairy confining forest, she hadn't done anything. It seemed like everything was different from what she knew. Therefore, she had followed Suyu all the way, from the mission to kill Mo Yang to the rescue of the Sidhu family. And just now, the Suyu she saw was a Suyu who would never kill the innocent, and who would save his fellow faction members. He selflessly saved Bing Wuxin and Gongsun Wuxia, and selflessly aided the Sidhu family. In order not to implicate them, he traveled alone and was hunted by the Shao family's master. In the end, he had the opportunity to kill Gongsun Wuxia, but he let her go. Was this Suyu really the cruel enemy that the Central Prefecture's king had mentioned? She was deeply shaken, and she couldn't help but wonder if the Central Prefecture's king was lying to her. Zixuan, if you want to kill him, do it now, Suyu said. In the future, it will be extremely difficult to take revenge. Zixuan looked at Suyu from afar, her eyes full of complex emotions. If she had wanted to kill him, she would have done it long ago, and she would have had countless opportunities to not give Suyu any chance to use the tree god's leaf, and she wouldn't have even been discovered by Suyu. She had come, and she had shown herself, just to ask for an explanation, to be at ease, and then bid farewell. After a long silence, she regained her calmness. Wait until I go back and ask, then I'll take your life. When she finished speaking, she turned into a residual shadow and crossed the void, ready to leave. Suyu was silent. Perhaps it was in the vicinity of the elegant spirit mountain that Zixuan had gradually noticed that something was amiss when she had been looking for Suyu's traces. This was why Suyu's traces had always appeared in the places that Su Yuxin had gone to, but he had always found nothing when he was with her. This was why she had disguised herself as a golden light guard to test Suyu. As he looked in the direction in which Zixuan had left, Suyu wanted to ask her to stay, but he hesitated. Right at that moment, a pained groan was heard. Zixuan, who had just torn open the space, was suddenly attacked, and her body flew backward from the crack. A crack appeared on her palm, which was as fair as jade, and drops of snow white, crystal clear blood flowed out. Zixuan looked at the crack as if she was facing a great enemy, and she shouted, "Who is it? Who is sneak attacking me?" Swoosh! A black flowing light flew out from the crack. When the flowing light came to a stop, an exquisite, beautiful, and cold woman could be seen floating in the void. She had a sun-moon crown on her head, and her aura was soaring. The surrounding mountains shook, and the ground trembled slightly. Countless ferocious birds and demonic beasts fled in fright. Her imposing manner was like that of an empress. He, the Central Prefecture's king's female disciple, a member of the crystal race with an ancient spiritual body. He is actually willing to let you out. Isn't he afraid that the cauldron he has been cultivating for so many years will be taken away by another man? The woman smiled coldly. Zixuan didn't understand what she was talking about, so she shouted, "Who are you? Why did you attack me? Didn't the Central Prefecture's king tell you that you must first know who the territory's owner is when you come to it?" The woman looked at Zixuan, her eyes filled with pity. Zixuan was startled, and she asked, "Are you Mo Tianxian?" Mo Tianxian? Suyu was quite surprised, and he wondered, how did I end up running into the Red Blood Palace's master, Mo Tianxian? This legendary woman was well known to Suyu, and her achievements were only second to Jian Wuxing's. It's good that you know her. Since the Central Prefecture's king dared to let you come to the blessed and heavenly lands, then don't leave. Stay here for me, as I'm very interested in the ancient spiritual body. Mo Tianxian smiled coldly, as she threw out a blurry black shadow from her palm. As soon as the black shadow appeared, it emitted a shocking and ruthless demonic energy. Its power was shocking. All of a sudden, the mountains and rivers lost their color, and the sky was covered by demonic energy. It was as if doomsday had come. Suyu was secretly surprised. What kind of weapon could be so terrifying? The only thing that could compare to it was the flying guillotine that he had snatched from the female all-creation. As he thought about it, Suyu couldn't help but look at Mo Tianxian. The more he looked, the more he felt that Mo Tianchuan's face was similar to that of the woman who had disguised herself as a man. When he looked at the black shadow again, a trace of its true appearance was revealed. It was in the shape of a gear. The flying guillotine. Boom! Suyu's mind was blown. The female all-creation that day was the palace master of the Red Blood Palace, Missouri Tianxian. As a student of the Red Blood Palace, Suyu had knocked out the palace master, snatched her treasure, and swaggered around right under her nose without being discovered until now. Just thinking about it made Suyu break out in a cold sweat. How lucky must I be to be able to survive under Mo Tianchuan's nose until now? The flying guillotine killed invisibly, and Zixuan had been injured because of it. Seeing that the terrifying, demonic supreme fairy artifact was about to attack again, Zixuan's whole body flickered with fluorescent light, and she gradually turned into a transparent crystal from the inside out. In the blink of an eye, she had turned from a living human into a crystal that looked like a sculpture. Crap! The flying guillotine, which was a demonic supreme fairy artifact that could easily cut through an all-creation strongman, rubbed against Zixuan's arm, creating a series of sparks. It left a remnant mark and was sent flying away. As expected of an ancient crystal spiritual body. I'm even more interested in you now. Mo Tianxian smiled, took back the flying guillotine, and imbued vital energy into it. All of a sudden, the flying guillotine emitted a bloody smell, and a bright red spot appeared on the gears of the flying guillotine. From afar, it looked like a blood-stained gear, and it gave off an unusually fierce and uneasy feeling. Zixuan's face changed, and the fluorescent light on the surface of her body flickered again. The crystal became even more transparent and pure. However, the speed of her crystallization couldn't keep up with the speed of the flying guillotine. With a horrible shriek, Zixuan's arm was cut by the flying guillotine. This time, the crystal was cut open, and the flying guillotine almost cut off her arm. Zixuan made a prompt decision, and she slapped the flying guillotine away, saving her life. Facing Mo Tianxian, Zixuan didn't even have the power to protect herself. Stay here obediently, and I won't hurt you. I just want to study your spiritual body. If you refuse, as your teacher's sworn enemy, I can't find a reason to let you go back alive, Mo Tianxian said. Zixuan clenched her teeth, turned around, and tore the space apart to escape. Mo Tianxian didn't chase after her. Instead, she clenched her fist, and the space fissure in front of Zixuan closed with a bang. Your teacher should have told you that in this world, apart from the 9 great prefectures' kings, there aren't many people who can compete with me in space power, Mo Tianxian said calmly, her eyes turning cold. If you refuse again, I won't be polite anymore. However, right at that moment, a space power appeared beside Zixuan, and she was instantly transported in front of Suyu. Zixuan only had time to see Suyu's figure, who was right in front of her, before Suyu grabbed her by the waist and leaped into a space vortex. The space vortex was extremely deep, and even Zixuan, who was in all creation, found it unfathomable. She didn't know where it led to. Suyu had thought it through. If he stayed and was recognized by Mo Tianxian, he would surely die. So, he might as well use the space vortex and escape with Zixuan. Although he didn't know where they were escaping to, it was still better than staying. Mo Tianxian had been paying attention to Zixuan all along, and she didn't care about the people below. However, she reacted quickly and said coldly, You have a helper? Humph. Mo Tianxian grabbed at the air, and Su Yu, who had already stepped into the space vortex, was dragged back. This caused Su Yu to be shocked. Zixuan was dragged back together with him. Seeing that the two of them were about to be dragged back, Su Yu gritted his teeth and looked at Zixuan deeply. If I've hurt you, please forgive me. Take care. Zixuan seemed to understand what Su Yu was going to do, and she was moved. Stop. However, Su Yu had already exerted his strength, and with a palm, he pushed Zixuan deeper into the space vortex, and she was transported by it completely. No! Zixuan shouted loudly, and her heart was moved. She had never expected that the person who would save her in the end would be Su Yu, whom she wanted to kill. A warm current flowed into the depths of her heart. Su Yu was dragged out alive, and Mo Tianxian held him down in the air. Mo Tianxian was furious when she saw what had happened in the space vortex. She had finally managed to capture the ancient crystal body that the Central Prefecture's king regarded as a treasure. But in the end, it had been let go by this old fellow. You're courting death. Mo Tianxian was furious, and she pulled Su Yu in front of her, her face full of anger. However, when she saw Su Yu's face clearly, she was stunned on the spot, as if she had been struck by lightning. After a long while, she suddenly screamed, "It's you, old perverted thief." How could she forget that familiar face? Not only did he molest her, but he had also knocked her unconscious and taken away her flying guillotine. What was even more hateful was that he had taken it and sold it. She had never dared to publicize this matter, and she had not even dared to send people to inquire about the whereabouts of the flying guillotine, because it would be too shameful if it was spread out. As the palace master of the Red Blood Palace, an existence that could compete with the prefecture's king, her original life treasure had been knocked unconscious and taken away by an old man who had just passed by. She found it hard to talk about this matter. Fortunately, the flying guillotine had been accidentally purchased by the Duanshan Cliff Master, whom she was familiar with, so she could avoid becoming a laughingstock. How could she forget this face? She had never thought that she would meet this guy here. Su Yu's heart thumped, and he said embarrassedly, "Miss, you have mistaken me for someone else." Chapter 9:33. Hey, miss, let's talk this out. We've never met before. You must have misunderstood something. Pulling at each other in public is disgraceful, Su Yu said calmly. Mo Tianxian was still smiling coldly, as if she had found an enemy. I would recognize you even if you turned into ashes. Come back to the Red Blood Palace with me first. Not only did she restrict Su Yu's vital energy flow, but she also sealed one of his special meridians, making him unable to speak. Creak! Mo Tianxian tore the space apart and brought Su Yu across the void. Several hours later, they had crossed half of the blessed and heavenly lands and returned to the top of the Red Blood Palace's inner palace. Looking at the familiar fairy confining forest, Su Yu wanted to cry, but had no tears. He had been forcibly brought back. Greetings, Palace Master. 2 ninth grade Almighty flew out of the inner palace and greeted them. They were the left and right palace masters of the inner palace. They glanced at the old man being held by Mo Tianxian with a strange expression. What was going on? Mo Tianxian said, Did anything happen in the palace while I was away? The left palace master's face turned grave as he nodded. There are 2 things. First, all of Juzhou's kings, except for the Central Prefecture's king, have sent someone to inquire whether the death of the Central Prefecture's 5 great golden light divine guards is related to the Red Blood Palace. In the whole world, Mo Tianxian was the most suspicious. First, the 5 great golden light guards died tragically in the Red Blood Palace's territory. Second, Mo Tianxian had the motive and ability to kill them all. So what if it's related? Unless the prefecture's king asks, ignore it. Mo Tianxian snorted. She had personally rushed to the scene to investigate and found some clues. The left palace master was slightly stunned. If the lifeless prefecture's king asks, how should we respond? Jian Wuxing had a deep relationship with the Red Blood Palace. She could be considered the Red Blood Palace's backer. Mo Tianxian pondered for a moment and said, Forget it. Spread the news that the one who killed the 5 great divine guards of the Central Prefecture is the new demon talent who killed the Blood Emperor. The left Palace Master and the right Palace Master's faces changed. Palace Master, are you talking about the rumored ruthless demonic cultivator with blood-red hair and eyes? The right Palace Master sucked in a breath of cold air. Not only had Blood Emperor died at the hands of that ruthless demonic cultivator, but the 5 great golden light guards had also been annihilated by him. This person's magical powers were unparalleled, and there was hardly anyone below the 9 great prefectures' kings who could rival him. It's him. I found a lot of traces of time reversing. It's exactly the same as the death of the Blood Emperor. In this world, it can only be done by the mysterious diabolism. Mo Tianxian frowned and was a little fearful. This ruthless diabolism was indeed too powerful. Mo Tianxian was confident that she could kill Blood Emperor. It would be easy to kill a few of the 5 great bright light guards, but it would be difficult to annihilate all of them. Moreover, the other party had the projection of the Central Prefecture's king, so annihilating them was easier said than done. But that ruthless demonic cultivator could do it. If that's the case, we need to be on guard against this person. He's appeared in our blessed and heavenly lands more than once, the left palace lord said in a deep voice. Mo Tianxian said, "Don't worry. If he wanted to harm the blessed and heavenly lands, he would have done so a long time ago. Why would he wait until now? Moreover, the people he killed were all important subordinates of the Central Prefecture's king. They were not demons who killed indiscriminately. You just need to be vigilant and don't worry too much." Let's continue. What's the second matter? Mo Tianxian asked. The left palace lord said, "The second matter is that the Heavenly Knife region sent an emissary here." Mo Tianxian sneered. The Heavenly Knife region? They lost face in Tinya City, and now they sent an emissary here. Are they trying to play tricks again? It would be strange if the Heavenly Knife region could keep their composure after being uprooted overnight. Exactly. They hope to have another duel with the Wood Clan's language experts of the Blessed and Heavenly Lands. If they win, they hope to keep 100 shops. If they lose, they'll have to compensate an additional 100 million crystals. 100 million crystals was a huge fortune for the Red Blood Palace. 100 million? It seems like they came prepared. Mo Tianxuan's eyes shone. The left palace lord nodded. Apart from Elder Qin and Elder Lin, there's another mysterious person among the Wood Clan's language masters they brought with them. Before they came to the Red Blood Palace, they challenged Master Gao of Tinya City. In the end, Master Gao admitted defeat after 3 rounds. Mo Tianxian squinted her eyes. I heard that Master Gao received the teachings of Su Yuxian, Master Su. How come he couldn't even withstand 3 rounds? It's true. Deputy General Manager Wu sent us an urgent message to remind us to pay attention to that mysterious person, the left palace lord said. Mo Tianxian nodded slowly. She wasn't too worried. Palace lord, please decide how we should receive the emissary, the right palace lord said. Mo Tianxian snorted. Is there need to ask? They intended to defeat Master Gao first, and then come to see us. Obviously, they want to challenge us. If the Red Blood Palace doesn't accept the challenge, we'll become a laughing stock. Moreover, we have Master Su. What's there to be afraid of? Tell Su Yuxian and Master Su to accept the challenge. The left palace lord and the right palace lord were solemn, but they weren't flustered. Su Yuxian, who was from the outside sanctum, had amazing attainments in the Wood Clan's language. Yes, we'll do it now. The two agreed. The right palace lord paused and said, "There's one more thing. Please punish us." "Say it." Mo Tianxian stared at him. The right palace lord had a bitter look on his face. "I'm incompetent. I failed to see through the Shao family's ambition in advance." Shao Chunguang, a direct descendant of the Shao family, took the opportunity to escape from the faction before the Shao family rebelled. We didn't know where he went. When we rushed to the Shao family, it was already empty. Mo Tianxian looked calm. "I'm in isolation all year round. I don't care about the affairs of the world. I'm also responsible. It's not your fault. The Shao family's rebellion is just a facade. There's an unimaginably mysterious force behind it. You must be careful." After that, Mo Tianxian waved her sleeves. Go. Tell Master Su to deal with the emissary of the Heavenly Knife region. I have some private matters to deal with first. I'll receive the emissary later. Suyu hurriedly winked at her. His eyes kept rolling. He was trying to say, I'm the master Suyu mentioned. However, in Mo Tianxuan's eyes, it had a different meaning. Humph, still trying to play tricks. Mo Tianxian sneered. Swoosh. Mo Tianxian stepped into the secret room while carrying Suyu. The left palace lord looked at Suyu in surprise. He wondered, who on earth is this person? Why did he disturb Mo Tianxian to deal with him personally? The right palace lord was also full of doubts. However, neither of them pursued the matter. Instead, they each ordered their subordinates to go to the outside sanctum to inform Su Yuxian to come to the inner sanctum. The emissary's audience with Su Yuxian was the responsibility of the Red Blood Palace's honor and disgrace. If it could be done well, it would be a great merit. Hence, both of them naturally fought to be the first to do it. Suyu was brought into the secret room. Mo Tianxian said coldly, You didn't expect to fall in my hands, did you? You've earned a lot from my fairy artifact, haven't you? At the same time, the vital energy in Suyu's body was released, and he was able to speak. When did I sell you a fairy artifact? Suyu chose to deny it firmly. You almost got me killed. I haven't even settled the score with you yet, and now you're the one complaining. Upon hearing this, Mo Tianxuan's anger rose. Stealing her fairy artifact was one thing, but she was still in a coma and had been molested by the old perverted thief. Suyu's refusal made Mo Tianxian very angry. Chapter 9:34. Suyu shrugged his shoulders. You are right. There really was one person at that time. It was a mysterious young man. After he saved you, he said that he would never save a person for free and that the person he saved had to pay the price. In the end, he took your things. I couldn't beat him, so I could only watch him leave. Mo Tianxuan's eyes turned slightly. According to the severed fairy cliff master, the one who sold her the fairy weapon was the ruthless demonic cultivator who was extremely famous. Could it be that he had really misunderstood this old man as the person who had saved him? If that's the case, why did you say that you didn't know me when I caught you? Moreover, you're the one who knocked me out, weren't you? Mo Tianxian asked suspiciously. Suyu explained, Isn't that only natural? When you woke up, you were brimming with killing intent. I was afraid that you would misunderstand, so of course I had to injure you. After I was caught by you, I was worried that there would be a misunderstanding and that I would be hurt, so I covered up. At first glance, Mo Tianxian felt that it made sense. No matter how he looked at it, the old man in front of him was just an ordinary fairy. So, how could he possibly deal with the ghost world's great emperor's extreme, evil ghost energy? Could it really be that new star of the demonic path? Mo Tianxian was lost in thought, and she was slightly disappointed. When she had caught Suyu, she was truly excited and delighted. The extreme evil ghost energy had haunted her for many years, causing her to be stuck at the all-creation realm, unable to advance any further. He had thought that he had obtained a fortuitous encounter, but who would have thought that there would be a mishap? However, for some unknown reason, Mo Tianxian vaguely felt that something was amiss. Her clear eyes stared at Suyu. Why do I feel that not a single word of yours can be trusted? In fact, Suyu's heart was beating like a drum. If Mo Tianxian searched his body, not only would the 9 jade spiritual pearl be discovered, the rings of the 5 golden light guards that he had just obtained would definitely be exposed. His identity as a ruthless demonic man would also be exposed. Then what are you going to do? Suyu was as calm as ever. Mo Tianxuan's eyes flickered. I'll know once I search your soul. I'll check your memories, and I'll know if it's true or false. Suyu's heart thumped. Soul search? It's worse than a body search. Do I need to use the tree god's leaf? However, at such a close distance, he probably wouldn't even have the chance to use it. Mo Tianxian was a valiant existence who could suppress the 5 great bright light guards all by herself. Palace Master, something bad has happened. Suddenly, 2 voices came from outside the door at the same time. It was the left and right Palace Masters. Mo Tianxian frowned and asked coldly, What's going on? Didn't I order Master Su Yuxian to deal with the envoy first? How long had it been? They were back. Palace Lord, it's about Master Su. The left Palace Lord looked serious and anxious. Mo Tianxian had no choice but to temporarily give up on searching his soul. She opened the stone door and asked, "What happened to him?" "Princess, when we sent a message to the outer sect, we found out that Master Su had accepted a mission and left the sect a few days ago. He hasn't returned yet," the left palace master said. Mo Tianxian furrowed her brows. "He's not in the faction at this critical juncture? What mission? Where is he now?" "Palace Master, it's a mission to kill Mo Yang. According to Outer Sanctum's Pavilion Master Konchan and Palace Master Hua, Mo Yang was last seen at the Sita clan. Afterward, he disappeared, and we can't contact him." The right palace master furrowed his brows. Without Su Yuxian's support, no one in the Red Blood Palace could accept the emissary's challenge. Mo Tianxian was annoyed. "Then what are we waiting for? Immediately send someone to inform the Situ clan and ask them about Su Yuxian's whereabouts. In addition, send inner court disciples with faster movement techniques to search for him. We must find him as soon as possible." "What about the emissaries?" the left palace master asked, sensing the urgency of the matter. "I can only go see them in person and delay them," Mo Tianxian said. She looked back at Su Yu, who was in the secret chamber, and said, "Detain him. I'll interrogate him later." Then she left in a hurry. The left and right palace masters followed closely behind. A few indifferent guards walked in, grabbed Su Yu, and took him to the Red Blood Palace's prison. Su Yu said hurriedly, "Hey, wait, I'm Su Yuxian." Unfortunately, Mo Tianxian, the left and right palace masters, and the others were all peerless strong men who could travel millions of miles with a single step. Su Yu's words were only heard by the two guards. They were indifferent and just obeyed Mo Tianxuan's mission mechanically, locking him up in the inner palace's prison. Although it was called a prison, it was actually a sealed house with resting rooms, training rooms, and maids. It was even better than the treatment at the Demon Mountain in the outer palace. Apart from losing his freedom, there was no suffering. Su Yu smiled bitterly. Since he was already here, he might as well make the best of it. He would first prepare the axis, and then use the tree god's leaf to escape. After being sealed in the house, Su Yu immediately entered the training room to isolate himself. First, he checked the 5 space rings urgently. Su Yu was looking forward to these 5 rings. The collection of all creations must be enormous. Moreover, they belong to the Central Prefecture's king's most trusted 5 golden light guards. He tried to probe with a trace of his soul energy, but all he saw was darkness. His soul couldn't penetrate them. "What's going on?" Su Yu asked in surprise. The 5 great golden light guards were clearly dead, so why couldn't the rings be opened? Normally, after the owner died, the space ring would become an ownerless object, and any martial artist could open it. Could it be that my soul energy is too weak, and it's not enough to open the rings that have been recognized by all creations? Su Yu couldn't help but guess. In fact, his guess was not far off the mark. The rings of all creation's old monsters, in addition to being recognized by the blood of their owners, were usually augmented with the space perception unique to all creation's old monsters. Different all creation's old monsters had different perceptions of space. Therefore, even the all creations who were far stronger than him could not open the space rings. Apart from himself, no one could open them. Su Yu tried the 5 rings one by one, but his soul energy was blocked without exception. This disappointed Su Yu greatly. However, Su Yu wasn't willing to give up. After pondering this for a while, an idea appeared in the depths of his mind. A beam of wine-red light flickered in Su Yu's right eye and shot into one of the space rings. Su Yu wanted to use space teleportation to move the items out of the ring. When his space energy entered the ring, it became very obscure and difficult to penetrate. However, unlike his soul energy, a faint wisp of space energy managed to enter the ring's interior successfully. Su Yu's eyes lit up, and he immediately controlled this wisp of space energy to grab the items in the ring. Since the space energy was very weak, the items that could be moved out were very few. Swish! All of a sudden, a light flickered, and a lump of items was swept out by the space energy. It fell on the ground and emitted a tinkling sound. When he lowered his head to take a look, he saw that it was 3 or 4 crystals. Suyu was disappointed, as he didn't care about crystals at all. When he was about to continue teleporting, a cracking sound came from the ring's surface, and a hair-thin crack appeared on it. Then it exploded with a bang. Suyu's expression changed, and he threw it away. The moment it left his hand, a pitch-black space fissure erupted from the ring's interior. All of the items in the ring were sucked into the depths of the space fissure. Suyu's face fell. The space ring had actually shattered. Such a forceful teleportation method had affected the space energy arranged in the ring, which had caused the ring to self-destruct. As he lowered his head to look at the remaining 4 rings, Suyu hesitated slightly. It seemed like he could only try once with the remaining 4 rings. Chapter 9:35. With a flash, Suyu chose to continue. Once Mo Tianxian was free and found a few rings, he would lose the chance to try again. Clenching his teeth, Suyu tried to infuse space energy into the second space ring. He pulled out an item immediately. Before he could observe what it was, the ring shattered with a crack. The items in the ring were all sucked into the space turbulence and turned to dust. Looking down at the items that had been pulled out, Suyu could not help but twitch his mouth. Another 3 crystals. There were at least tens of millions of crystals in the space rings of all creation's old monsters, and most of them must be crystals. If he wanted to randomly pull out other useful items, he would have to rely on his luck. Taking a light breath, Suyu instilled the energy of space into the third ring, quickly wrapping it around an item and pulling it out. The third ring shattered as expected. Suyu furrowed his brows as he looked at the objects in his hand. They were 3 fiery red, shiny crystals. Crystals again. Halfway through his sentence, Suyu stared at the crystals again and pinched them between his index finger and thumb. Something doesn't seem right. From the outside, they looked no different from ordinary crystals, but the purity of their spiritual energy was 10,000 times that of ordinary crystals. Even a fragment of it could not be compared to a whole crystal. Could it be the legendary top-grade crystals? Suyu's eyes lit up. Crystals were divided into lower, middle, and top grades. Lower grades were commonly used as currency. Middle grades were extremely rare because their spiritual energy was 100 times purer than lower grades. They were often used as spiritual items for training and could not be found in the market. As for top-grade crystals, they were mostly seen in books and rumors. There were almost no records of top-grade crystals being sold in public. The purity of the spiritual energy contained in top-grade crystals was considered the highest in the world. They were extremely important and were usually used as the energy source of super top-notch formations. They were usually stored as top-notch strategic resources of the faction and would never be sold. As one of the 2 great factions of the Blessed and Heavenly Lands, the Red Blood Palace only had 3 top-grade crystals in storage. The Purple Cloud Palace was almost the same, with no more than 3. Suyu had only 1, which showed how valuable it was. Its value was almost the same as a defective immortal artifact. Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. He had finally obtained something good. Although it was useless for now, it would be useful in the future. He put it together with the 2 remaining drops of the Fountain of Life and the 2 leaves of the Tree God. Finally, there were 2 rings left. Suyu's eyes were filled with anticipation as he opened the rings of the 4 golden light guards. Using the same method, Suyu successfully took out a jade stone that was shining with azure light. It wasn't a crystal. Suyu's heart was filled with anticipation. When he fixed his eyes on it, he noticed that there were many small words on it. When he finished reading the first paragraph, his pupils constricted and his breathing quickened. The remaining 2 moves of the heaven extinguishing divine palm. Suyu's heart was beating wildly. What was recorded on the jade stone were the remaining supreme sun palm and divine light palm. Elder Joe only knew the first move, the moon palm, and that was the only move that he had taught Zhang Xian. Now that Zhang Xian had learned the other 2 moves, he could use them to make up for his shortcomings. Now that I have this scroll, This adventure was worth it, Suyu muttered to himself as he kept the jade stone. Then, Suyu looked at the last ring, which belonged to the leader of the Bright Light Guards. His storage should have far surpassed that of the other 4 Bright Light Guards. Suyu looked at the last ring, which belonged to the leader of the Golden Light Guards. His storage should be far greater than the other 4 Golden Light Guards. With a pung sound, the ring shattered. No one knew just how much wealth there was, but it was drawn into the chaotic streams of space and thus wasted. With a bang, the ring shattered. No one knew how much wealth had been rolled out, but it was a brush pot. What surprised Suyu was that it wasn't an elixir or a cultivation technique, but a brush holder. There were 5 different colored brushes in the brush pot. What is this? Suyu looked at the brush pot and found a line of small words on the side of the brush pot. A simplified version of the heaven-extinguishing 5 elemental formation. Suyu's eyes flashed. He continued to read, and the more he read, the more delighted he became. In the end, he couldn't help but laugh. Ha! The 5 Golden Light Guards. You're letting me off easy even before you die. Suyu held the brush pot and smiled. This brush pot was a treasure that the 5 Golden Light Guards had jointly refined. It had been mixed with many fairy artifact fragments. In terms of grade, the brush pot was no less than a semi-manufactured fairy artifact. Its function was to unleash the 5 Golden Light Guards' heaven-extinguishing 5 elemental formation, which could only be performed by the 5 Golden Light Guards. Unlike the original version of the 5 elemental formation, which required 5 powerful Golden Light Guards to jointly set up, this simplified version of the treasure could be fully activated by just one person instilling vital energy into it. It could be said that any all-creation old monster below stage 3 of all creations could be forcibly suppressed. If Suyu encountered an all-creation old monster again, he would have another powerful trick up his sleeve. This item was more useful to Suyu than the remaining 2 moves of the heaven-extinguishing Divine Palm. Since the 5 Golden Light Guards were dead, the refining mark left on the brush pot naturally dissipated. Suyu easily refined the item and turned it into his treasure. Suyu put it away contentedly. Finally, he took out a golden dust. This dust was one of the yellow powders that filled the sky after the tree god's leaf had withered. Because it contained mysterious energy, Suyu had preserved it. He stared at the dust and sensed the energy within it in detail. The more he sensed it, the more terrifying it felt. It was a kind of energy that surpassed the all-creation's mighty force. It was extraordinary. Although Enmu was strong and could be said to be at the peak of all creation, he had never displayed such a peak-level energy. From this, there could only be one possibility: the mortal fairy's strength. For some unknown reason, the dust contained an enormous gust of the mortal fairy's strength. The energy was very pure. After removing the impurities and scents, it had become natural energy that could be absorbed by any living creature. Could it be that the tree god's leaf has absorbed the Central Prefecture's king's energy? Suyu narrowed his eyes and speculated about what had happened. Suyu had already experienced the inhuman power displayed by the Central Prefecture's king's projection. Now, it seemed that the Central Prefecture's king had stepped into the mortal fairy realm. It seems that the tree god's leaf has purified this energy, and the Central Prefecture's king's scent has been completely purified. Suyu stared at the dust, and his eyes shone. Suyu had seen the tree god's purifying ability with his own eyes. Suyu was not surprised that the tree god's leaf contained such power. Originally, even if he had obtained the Central Prefecture's king's mortal fairy strength, it would be useless. The remnant scent of the Central Prefecture's king alone prevented the energy from fusing into the body of an outsider. That scent could even kill an outsider. However, after being purified by the tree god's leaf, it became pure energy. This was something that the Central Prefecture's king had never thought of. The mortal fairy's strength? Suyu's eyes shone. He placed the dust between his palms and slowly absorbed a trace of energy, which was less than 1% of the dust. However, when the energy entered his body, Suyu was shocked. The seemingly small amount of mortal fairy's strength flooded Suyu's limbs and vessels like a tsunami. Bang! Bang! Suyu could even hear the deafening sound of his meridians being impacted, and his heart was beating violently because of the accelerated blood flow. All of a sudden, Suyu's face turned red. His meridians swelled like twisted and hideous green snakes. Drops of blood, under the pressure of the powerful energy in his body, spurted out from his pores. It looked like red lines shooting out from Suyu's body. Fortunately, the light of Suyu's dantian was far superior to those of the same level. Even a ninth-grade fairies could not compare. Some of the energy flowed along the meridians, and after a round of circulation, it entered the dantian. The pressure on the meridians was slightly relieved, and Suyu came back from the brink of exploding. Suyu heaved a sigh of relief and was secretly surprised. The energy he absorbed just now was less than 1,000th of the Central Prefecture's kings, but it almost made Suyu explode. Chapter 9:36. Suppressing the shock in his heart, Suyu immediately sat down with his legs crossed and guided the enormous energy in his dantian. The swelling and tearing sensation in his dantian were signs of a breakthrough. First, the external dantian was quickly filled, but the energy was still enormous. It seeped into the internal dantian and filled it up too. When the internal and external dantians reached their limits, they began to tear. With a sharp pain, his dantian expanded rapidly to twice its original size, as if it was splitting the heavens and earth apart. However, the energy in the meridians continued to flow to the dantian, causing it to overflow again. Then, the dantian tore and swelled again. This happened 3 times, and Suyu's dantian experienced sharp pain 3 times in a row before it finally stopped. Suyu's face was as pale as a sheet, and his whole body was drenched in sweat, soaking his clothes. His meridians were aching, and his dantian was in constant pain. The whole process lasted for only 2 hours, but Suyu felt like he had experienced a sea of fire on the island. After a long time, Suyu exhaled deeply. The pain on his face gradually eased, and he regained his human color. With a thought, vital energy emerged from the surface of Suyu's body and condensed on the surface of his body. It was 10 feet thick. If a third-grade Almighty were here, they would have gasped. Even a third-grade Almighty's vital energy was insufficient to condense such a thick vital energy defense. Anyone who saw this scene would think that Suyu had condensed a fetal crystal, which was why his body could contain such enormous vital energy. However, the truth was that what existed in Suyu's abdomen was still the dantian, not the fetal crystal that only almighty strong men could condense. A whiff of the mortal fairy's strength had caused Suyu's dantian to undergo 3 drastic changes, and his cultivation had directly leaped from the 6th-grade fairy to the 9th-grade fairy. The vital energy storage had surpassed the 3rd-grade almighty and was comparable to the 4th grade. The size of his dantian was not unique, but there were only a few like in JoJo. According to the experience of many 9th-grade fairies breaking through to the almighty, the larger the dantian, the more powerful the fetal crystal would be. How powerful would Suyu's dantian be if he really began to condense a fetal crystal? After 3 consecutive breakthroughs, Suyu's soul strength and physical strength had been baptized. Now, his soul strength had surpassed ordinary 9th-grade fairies, but it was still a distance from the Almighty. As for his physical strength, combined with the real spirit dragon veins, he should have the strength of a 1st-grade Almighty. Seeing such rapid progress, Suyu smiled and said, Central Prefecture's king, I didn't expect that it was your power that helped me improve my cultivation. He had only absorbed 1% of the mortal fairy's strength in the dust. If he absorbed all of it, Suyu would be able to break through to the all creations level, let alone the almighty level. It could be said that for a very long time in the future, he wouldn't have to worry about pills that could increase his cultivation. Thinking of this, Suyu became even more confident. This fortuitous encounter was unimaginable. This was especially true for his soul energy, which was only a step away from the God Lord level. Suyu had long been prepared for this kick. His soul left his body and entered the ninth jade spiritual pearl, heading straight for the nursery. The 8 ingredients for the heart-refining mortal dust liquid had been cultivated for more than 2 months, which was equivalent to 100 years in the outside world. He had always wanted to know whether the effects of the heart-refining mortal dust liquid refined from the best quality materials would be different, now that they were 100 years old, which was far beyond the normal age of the ingredients. It was time to take them out and refine a special heart-refining mortal dust liquid. After collecting the ingredients, Suyu returned to the outside world and immediately took out a small cauldron, preparing to refine elixirs. This was a dungeon, so there was no earth fire to use. But for Suyu, refining elixirs no longer required earth fire. In his heart, the fire essence jade vibrated, and a wisp of flame gushed out, condensing into a flame in Suyu's palm. The temperature was high, far higher than the earth fire of Tianya City's purple flame mountain, and it was more than enough to refine elixirs. Then, Suyu took out the elixir furnace with his left hand and placed it on his right palm to roast. At the same time, he handled the ingredients skillfully. When everything was ready, he began to refine elixirs with ease, according to his previous experience of refining the heart-refining mortal dust liquid. Compared to before, he could control the flames with ease, as if they were a part of him, and he could control them as he pleased. The refining process was smooth and natural, without any jerkiness. He had reached the level of fire manipulation in the path of fire. This level was also known as the elixir fire integration realm in the path of elixirs, and it was usually a realm that only elixir refining masters possessed. While Suyu was concentrating on refining elixirs, the inner palace of the Red Blood Palace welcomed the emissary of the Heavenly Knife region. In the main hall of the inner palace, Mo Tianxian sat at the head of the table, while the left and right palace masters sat on either side of her. Many elders of the inner sanctum sat side by side, including Master Ghost and Elder Jing. In the center of the hall, a group of 3 people stood proudly. One of them had 2 heads growing out of his body at the same time. It was undoubtedly Qin Lin. The other person was the Deputy Region Master of the Heavenly Knife region, Xiao Yulong. The last person was very strange. His whole body was covered in a long robe inlaid with emerald green jade pieces. Even his head was the same. It was airtight and very conspicuous. Mo Tianxian looked at the person and frowned slightly. Even she couldn't see through the person's face because of the strange jade piece-long robe. Deputy Region Master Xiao, you don't come to the Red Blood Palace for no reason. What brings you to the Red Blood Palace? Just say it. Mo Tianxian was a cold person, and she was disdainful of false pleasantries. Xiao Yulong was like his name. Although he was middle-aged, he was handsome and elegant. Palace Master Mo, how have you been? A few days ago, the Heavenly Knife region was defeated during the sacrificial ceremony at the desolate evil jungle in Tianya City. The region master reflected on the painful experience and specially sent me to the Red Blood Palace to ask for guidance. I hope Palace Master Mo will accept Palace Master Qian's painstaking effort for the sake of our many years of living as neighbors. Although his words were pleasant to hear, wasn't his original intention to regain face and retain the influence he had planted in Tianya City? I already understand your intention of coming. I accept the challenge, but it needs to be postponed for a few days, Mo Tianxian said. Xiao Yulong smiled. Why? Mo Tianxian paused. Master Su is carrying out a mission outside the palace and hasn't returned yet. It's not convenient for him to accept the challenge. Upon hearing that, Xiao Yulong laughed. Is there no other talent in the Red Blood Palace other than Master Su? Or is it that the Red Blood Palace is useless except for relying on Master Su? In other words, the Red Blood Palace was stalling for time for no reason. The mysterious man clad in jade snorted coldly. Why wait any longer? Whether Su Yuxin comes or not, the outcome won't change. I don't care about him. The arrogance of this man's tone was suspicious. Su Yu's performance at the sacrificial offering at the desolate evil jungle was unprecedented. No one had ever mastered the Mu words as fluently as he did. This man was so confident. Could it be that he really had the ability to suppress Su Yu? How could Mo Tianxian not understand? This was a provocation. She was an impatient person, but it didn't mean that she would be easily fooled. She said coldly, "I'll decide the date of the challenge. 3 days later, we'll have a showdown. If there's nothing else, you can all go and rest." Her forcefulness made Xiao Yulong's plan fall through. He pondered for a moment and nodded. "All right, I'll come back in 3 days." After watching them leave, Mo Tianxuan's eyes darkened. "How is it? There's still no news of Su Yuxian?" The left and right palace masters, who were in charge of searching for Su Yuxian, smiled bitterly. From a news sent back by the Sidu family, he left in the middle of the night and his whereabouts are unknown. Humph. Then send people to look for him immediately, Mo Tianxian said coldly. When the faction needed him, Su Yuxian had disappeared. Yes, everyone answered. Master Ghost pondered for a moment and said, "Palace Master, could Su Yuxian have met with some mishap? Or was he imprisoned?" According to the news sent by the Sidu family, Su Yuxian was hiding an ancient space spiritual body, as well as talents in the divine path and soul talents. With so many talents added to him, it's hard to guarantee that he wouldn't be kidnapped by some forces for research or forced to surrender. Upon hearing that, Mo Tianxian raised her eyebrows and was taken aback. Ancient space, spiritual body, and he also has achievements in the divine path and talents in the soul, especially the ancient space, spiritual body. It was the spiritual body of the ancient spiritual bodies. To think that such a spiritual body was hidden in her faction, she felt the pain of having a treasure slip away from her hands for nothing. Pass down the order. Inform all forces within the Red Blood Palace that those who find traces of Su Yuxian and report it to the faction will be rewarded with 10 million crystals. If anyone dares to imprison or hide Su Yuxian, the martial arts of the whole family will be abolished and expelled from the Red Blood Palace. Mo Tianxuan's tone was suddenly sharp, and there was excitement in the depths of her eyes. She was unusually interested in spiritual bodies. Yes, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Mo Tianxian was a little incredulous. Master Su is not only proficient in Mu words, but he is also an ancient space spiritual body. He also has achievements in the divine path, which is the most difficult to comprehend, and he is a talent in the soul. Any one of them is enough for an ordinary genius to enjoy for a lifetime, but he has all of them. I'm really looking forward to meeting this Master Su in person. Master Ghost was also very emotional about this. Yes, Master Su is usually low-key, but he has hidden so many talents. It's really amazing, and I can't help but feel inferior. Yes, inform me immediately after you find Su Yuxian. This time, even if I'm in isolation, I want to meet him in person. Mo Tianxuan's tone was very respectful. However, at this moment, a shocking spiritual energy fluctuation radiated from the depths of the inner palace. In the depths of the sky, a five-colored glow descended from the sky and shone on a certain area in the depths. If it was just a fluctuation, it wouldn't be so shocking. There were many experts in the inner palace, and it wasn't strange to inadvertently cause a fluctuation of spiritual energy. But what was strange was the celestial phenomenon accompanied by the five-colored glow. Mo Tianxian frowned. Why does it look like the formation of a fifth-grade elixir? She looked at Master Ghost with a questioning gaze. In the Red Blood Palace, the only elixir master who could refine fifth-grade elixirs was Master Ghost. Could it be that Master Ghost had trained a disciple? He had recently taken in a talented disciple, and she had heard a little about it. It's not that girl Ying. She's still a distance away from refining fifth-grade elixirs. Master Ghost shook his head and was very surprised. That's strange. Who in the faction is refining elixirs? In the depths of the inner sanctum, it must not be an outsider, but someone in the inner sanctum. Mo Tianxian had a strange expression. She thought for a while and said, "Let's go and have a look together. It's a happy occasion that there's a master in the faction who can refine fifth-grade elixirs. Let's congratulate him together." Chapter 9:37. Descending near the light, everyone stopped in their tracks with a strange look on their faces. Why is it the dungeon? Mo Tianxian was startled. Master Ghost pondered and said, "The one in charge of the dungeon should be Elder Hui. She once asked me for advice on alchemy. Is she refining elixirs in the dungeon?" Hearing his words, everyone nodded in agreement. "Congratulations, Palace Master. The Red Blood Palace has gained another famous alchemist. If she continues her studies, one day she will become an alchemist master who can refine 6th-grade elixirs." The left and right palace masters congratulated her. There were many alchemists in the Jiuzhou continent, but those who could be called masters were rare. In the past 100 years, the Red Blood Palace only had Master Ghost, and the condition to become an alchemist master was to successfully refine 6th-grade elixirs. This meant that the alchemist had reached a certain realm in elixir refining. Mo Tianxian was deep in thought. Her intuition told her that this was not the case. "Let's go in and take a look," Mo Tianxian said, leading everyone into the dungeon. As soon as they entered the dungeon, an old woman in her 60s immediately stood up and said hurriedly, "Greetings, Palace Master. I was just about to report." How could Elder Hui not notice such an obvious movement? Master Ghost and the others were confused and puzzled. Elder Hui, who is refining elixirs? Master Ghost was puzzled. Was there anyone else in the dungeon besides Elder Hui? Elder Hui looked at Mo Tianxian carefully and said, "It's the prisoner palace master Mo caught." Her words made Master Ghost, the left and right palace masters, and Elder Jing, who followed along, look at each other. After all this time, it was a prisoner. Someone who could be imprisoned by Mo Tianxian was definitely not an ordinary prisoner. Sigh. Master Ghost sighed, disappointment written all over his face. He thought it was someone from the faction, but now it seemed that it was not only not from the faction, but also from an opposing faction. The left and right palace masters, who had just congratulated her, were also embarrassed and silent. Elder Jing said coldly, "Humph, detained by the Red Blood Palace. Not only did you not repent, but you still have the leisure to refine elixirs. You are obviously looking down on the Red Blood Palace." She had always been ruthless, both to her enemies and her own people. Mo Tianxian, on the other hand, was astonished. The people she had personally imprisoned were all powerful people. But the only one who was imprisoned recently was that old pervert. "Follow me," Mo Tianxian said. Not long after, they followed the aura of the pills and arrived in front of a sealed house. Under the seal, a courtyard stood quietly. The doors were closed, and no one knew what was going on inside. The only thing he could feel was that within the seal, there were scattered pill flames burning everywhere, and the roof of the house had been blown away by some sort of explosive strength. A drop of purple liquid that was wrapped in colorful light was crashing around. Every time it crashed into a seal, it would be bounced back, unable to break out. At this moment, an old voice came from the damaged house. "Return." An enormous gust of vital energy that only a 3rd-grade Almighty possessed gushed out of the house, swept away the purple spiritual liquid in the sky, and returned to the house. 3rd-grade Almighty? Mo Tianxian was taken aback, as the old pervert's cultivation was only at the 6th-grade fairy level. Could it be someone else? Elder Hui, who is being detained inside? Mo Tianxian asked. Elder Hui said in surprise, "Please forgive me, Palace Master." This person was detained by the Palace Master's guards. They said that the Palace Master would interrogate him afterward, so I didn't ask for his information without permission. Unknown, but it must be the person being detained by Mo Tianxian. Impossible. Mo Tianxian took a step forward and lifted her hand. The seal, which was not weak, was automatically undone. Standing in the yard, Mo Tianxian stared at the tightly shut door. With a wave of her hand, a wave of mighty power blasted the door open. In the house, a disheveled old man with a pitch-black face and tattered clothes was holding a jade box with a smile. His face was full of satisfaction and excitement. Such an action, coupled with his disheveled appearance, looked wretched no matter how one looked at it, especially when many parts of his body were exposed. Mo Tianxian was caught off guard, and she said angrily, "Put on your clothes. Come out." It was him. She could recognize him even if he turned into ashes, let alone his face that was only scorched black. Suyu was also shocked, and he hid the fifth-grade spiritual liquid that he had refined without a second word. Even Suyu was shocked at the thought of refining this spiritual liquid. Ever since he had achieved the state of elixir fire unity, Suyu could feel that refining fourth-grade spiritual elixirs was not a problem, even without refining them himself. Unexpectedly, the actual refining went even smoother than expected. The materials were 100% purified. The flame reached the perfect state of elixir fire unity, and the final elixir fusion process went through hundreds and thousands of tempering. Most importantly, the materials of this spiritual liquid were all of the best quality over 100 years old. The medicinal properties it contained far exceeded its own attributes. This led to the fifth-grade spiritual liquid appearing at the end of the elixir refinement, and even triggered a weak vision of heaven and earth. It was precisely because of this that it attracted the attention of Mo Tianxian and the others. Master Ghost and Elder Jing looked at the disheveled and haggard man in tattered clothes. They found him vaguely familiar, but because of his scorched face, they could not recognize him. The left and right palace masters had never seen Suyu before, let alone recognized him. "Old man, you know how to refine elixirs?" Mo Tianxian stared at Suyu coldly, increasingly suspicious of his story. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? She was just knocked unconscious, and that ruthless demonic man passed by, treating her injuries for no reason, dispelling the mortal fairy's strength of the Central Prefecture's king, and taking away her demonic fairy artifact. At first, it barely made sense, but now that she thought about it carefully, it was full of loopholes. Suyu changed into a clean set of clothes, wiped his face, and grinned. "What does this have to do with Palace Master?" Mo Tianxian sneered. "Of course it has nothing to do with me, but it has a lot to do with your life. I'm not a pedantic person. If you can't give me a reason to agree with you, you know the consequences." An elixir refiner who could refine fifth-grade elixirs would be valued in any force. It would be fine if he was in an alliance, but if he was recruited by a hostile force, wouldn't he be funding the enemy? As Mo Tianxian sneered, Master Ghost and Elder Jing froze at the same time, staring at the person who appeared in the house as if they had seen a ghost. After a long while, Master Ghost stepped forward and scrutinized Suyu's face carefully, finally confirming the doubts in his heart. He said in shock, Aren't you Su Yuxian, Master Su?" He felt ridiculous. The Red Blood Palace was looking for Su Yuxian all over the world to deal with the provocation from the Heavenly Knife region. They had also speculated that Suyu hadn't shown up until now, and it was very likely that he was secretly imprisoned by some force. Who would have thought that he wasn't imprisoned by other forces, but by the Red Blood Palace, and it was done by the Palace Master himself? Such a turn of events stunned Master Ghost, and he stared at Mo Tianxian with wide eyes. Elder Jing was also startled, and her eyes were full of suspicion as she looked at Mo Tianxian. Mo Tianxuan's enthusiasm for the ancient spiritual body far exceeded that of ordinary all creation's old monsters. It was almost fanatical. Could it be that Mo Tianxian had captured Su Yu herself to study him? And then the thief cried thief? The left and right palace master's mind were in a mess, and they hadn't figured out what was going on. The foreign enemy captured by Mo Tianxian was one of their own, and it was the Master Su that they had been looking for everywhere. Mo Tianxian felt as if she had been struck by lightning, and her beautiful eyes widened. "You're saying that he's Su Yuxian? The Master Su who is proficient in Mu words from the outside sanctum?" She felt as if she had been struck by lightning. "Exactly. I wonder where did the Palace Master capture him? And how did you conclude that he was a foreign enemy?" Master Ghost was incredulous. Mo Tianxian said in a daze, "Near the Sidhu family. As for why I concluded that he was a foreign enemy, it was because he molested me back then." Halfway through her words, Mo Tianxian stopped abruptly. Master Ghost, Elder Jing, and the left and right palace masters looked at Mo Tianxian, and their gazes changed from suspicion to horror. "Su Yuxian molested the palace master?" "Oh, I mean he molested one of my maidservants." Mo Tianxian corrected herself in time and secretly glared at Su Yu, furious. Master Ghost and the others were embarrassed. So that was the case. They did not doubt it. In this world, there were only a handful of people who could molest Mo Tianxian. Su Yuxian was not one of them. Palace Master, I think there must be a misunderstanding. Su Yuxian has made great contributions to the faction many times and is a rare talent. It's fine if the Palace Master has misunderstood, but please release him as soon as possible. Otherwise, if the Red Blood Palace's reputation of imprisoning a meritorious disciple spreads out, the people will be shaken, Master Ghost said hurriedly. So you had made great contributions to the faction in the desolate evil jungle, and in the battle at the Sidhu family. Unexpectedly, Mo Tianxian did not know Su Yu, and instead imprisoned him as a criminal. If the news got out, who in the faction would dare to work for the faction with all their might? Who wouldn't be bitterly disappointed? Even Su Yu, who had made great contributions, ended up in such a state, let alone them. Upon hearing that, Mo Tianxuan's mind was in a mess, as if 10,000 horses were galloping through her heart. The old perverted thief that she had been searching for so long was actually in the faction, right under her nose. What was even more outrageous was that she had mistaken him for an outsider and imprisoned him. Now that the unknown forces of the blessed and heavenly lands were causing trouble, the people were in a state of panic. It was the critical moment to calm the people down. Unfortunately, he overreached himself and beat up a meritorious disciple. Moreover, there were still the envoys sent by the Heavenly Knife region nearby, and only Su Yu could handle them. What could she do to Su Yu? Not only could he not interrogate him, but he also had to treat him with favor and resolve the resentment in his heart. Mo Tianxian stared at Su Yu and said reluctantly, "So, you're Su Yuxian. I've heard about your deeds, and I wanted to summon you back then. However, I had to give up because you were in isolation. Since it's a misunderstanding, I'll pardon you. You can leave now." She thought to herself, "I'll let him go for now, and after I've dealt with the emissaries of the Heavenly Knife region, I'll search his soul to find out more about him." An ancient spatial spirit body, attainments in the divine Tao, wood tribe's language, and an alchemy grandmaster. He possessed all sorts of extraordinary qualities, so how could he be immortal? Furthermore, he was suspected of stealing an immortal artifact, so he had to search his soul to understand the cause and effect. Leave? May I ask, Palace Master, where can I go? Su Yu said with a straight face, "I've always been loyal to the faction, yet I'm suffering in prison. If I really dare to step out of the prison, will the Palace Master convict me of desertion?" Mo Tianxian was annoyed by his unreasonable pestering. Chapter 9:38. Since I've caught you, have you ever confessed your identity? This was also what Mo Tianxian was annoyed about. If she had confessed earlier, she wouldn't have been laughed at by the people in the sect. Su Yu said coldly, "May I ask if the Palace Master has ever given me a chance to speak?" His special meridians were sealed by Mo Tianxian in the beginning, so he could not speak. When he could speak, he was interrogated. How could he have the chance to reveal his identity? Mo Tianxian knew that she was in the wrong, so she was even more annoyed. If this went on, she would not be able to get out of the situation and would lose face in front of outsiders. "Do you want compensation?" Mo Tianxuan's tone became gentler. "The faction understands that you've been wronged. Just tell us what you want, and we'll definitely consider whatever it is that the faction can give you. I don't want you to lay a finger on me and retreat 1,000 miles away from me when you see me." Su Yu answered without hesitation. Upon hearing that, Master Ghost's forehead was covered with black lines, and he was secretly shocked. Su Yu was really bold to say such a thing. Elder Jing furrowed her brows. "How dare you? How dare you disrespect the Palace Master just because of a mere merit?" Su Yu calmly glanced at her. "I will settle the score with you later." As he spoke, Su Yu looked straight into Mo Tianxuan's eyes, which were burning with fury, and said, "If you agree, I'll leave the dungeon. If you don't, I'd rather die trapped in the dungeon than take a step out. If the faction has any difficulties in the future, don't look for me." Mo Tianxian clenched her fists and wished she could give him a few punches on his face. Due to a moment of carelessness, he allowed the other party to gain the upper hand. He had asked her to stay away from Su Yu and forbid her from touching him. He must have been trying to prevent her from searching his memories. Regardless of whether it was near or far, continuing to imprison Su Yu wasn't a wise move. Mo Tianxian suppressed her anger and forced a smile. I have been in seclusion all year round. I won't summon you after this. As for touching you, I won't. Words alone are no proof. Let me swear the Heart's Oath Scroll first. Su Yu took out the Heart's Oath Scroll from his space ring. The blue veins on Mo Tianxuan's forehead throbbed. She was the mistress of a palace, and it could be said that her words carried enormous weight. In the end, she was forced to sign the scroll of the Heart's Oath by a brat. Mo Tianxian suppressed her anger and took the Heart's Oath Scroll. She dripped her blood essence into it and signed the contract on the spot. Su Yu heaved a sigh of relief. Mo Tianxian stared at Su Yu, both infuriated and sneering inwardly. If a Heart's Oath Scroll could stop me, how could you call yourself one of the strongest experts below the prefecture's kings? Even if she didn't touch Su Yu, she still had ways to search through his memories. All right, pack up and rest for 3 days. I need you to do something, Mo Tianxian said. Unexpectedly, Su Yu stood on the same spot, with no intention of moving. Give me another 10 qualifications for the glittering jewel wonderland. Upon hearing this, Mo Tianxian almost lost control of her temper and flew into a rage on the spot. Even the Red Blood Palace only had 40 places to enter the glittering jewel wonderland. Su Yu asked for 10 of them in one go. Each person could only use one. As for the other 9, was he going to stew them? Mo Tianxian cursed inwardly. On the surface, however, Mo Tianxian frowned and asked, "Why is there a request? What I gave you just now was only a guarantee that the palace master wouldn't make the same mistake a second time. This is compensation. 10 qualifications for the glittering jewel wonderland," Su Yu said resolutely. Mo Tianxian shook her head. "Not to mention 10, I can't even give you one. The glittering jewel wonderland happens once every 100 years, and it's reserved for the students of the inner sanctum. It has always been a once-in-a-century opportunity for the great factions of the blessed and heavenly lands. Missing even one chance could affect the faction's destiny and strength for half a year. As the palace master, I have no right to reward them at will." She sounded very determined and unyielding, even if Su Yu didn't leave the dungeon. Su Yu frowned secretly. It seemed that the Red Blood Palace attached great importance to the glittering jewel wonderland. After thinking for a moment, Su Yu said, "All right, let's change the condition. I want to enter the depository of scriptures in exchange for some cultivation techniques." Mo Tianxian considered it for a moment, then nodded. "That's fine. You've made a great contribution to the Sidhu family, and you should be rewarded with 500,000 merit points. Now, as compensation, you'll be rewarded with another 500,000 merit points. In the depository of scriptures, you can even exchange for a top-notch legendary cultivation technique." This was actually the compensation for refusing to give Su Yu the qualifications for the glittering jewel wonderland. Su Yu wanted to enter the inner sanctum to exchange for a special book, but he didn't know if it existed in the inner sanctum. All right, Su Yu expressed his satisfaction. There were still 2 months before the glittering jewel wonderland, so it wasn't impossible for him to succeed. Mo Tianxian asked, "Is there anything else?" "Yes," Su Yu said. Mo Tianxuan's face finally fell, and she couldn't suppress the anger that was about to erupt. But Su Yu said, "I hope that the faction can send back someone who is on a mission as soon as possible." Upon hearing that, the anger on Mo Tianxuan's face faded, but she was slightly surprised. "Who? What mission?" "Xuelian, on a mission to spy on the Heavenly Knife region," Su Yu said. "Her?" Mo Tianxian had a strange look on her face. "Do you know Xuelian?" "Sort of," Su Yu said, feeling a little surprised. Why did Mo Tianxian sound like Xuelian was quite famous? "If it's her, there's no need to do that," Mo Tianxian said. "Xuelian is best at spying on intelligence, so there's no need to worry about her safety. If we summon her back now, it'll be dangerous for her to expose herself. After the glittering jewel wonderland, she'll come back when her mission is over. You don't have to worry." "Is that so?" Although Su Yu was uneasy, Tianchuan's words made sense. He could only hope that Xu Yin would take good care of herself. So you hope to repay her favor. You have no objections? Tianxian was exasperated. She was looking for an opportunity to search Su Yu's soul and find out what was going on. Before Su Yu could respond, Elder Jing snorted coldly. How dare you raise objections? It's your duty to render meritorious service to the faction. If you use this as a threat and ask for excessive benefits, it's treason. If she hadn't spoken, Su Yu wouldn't have bothered to haggle over it. But she just had to pick on Su Yu. Palace Master, there's one more thing I need you to know. Su Yu took out a jade box from his chest. It was sealed, and the contents couldn't be opened from the outside. Tianxian took the jade box suspiciously. She opened it and took a glance at it. Tianxian squinted her eyes and looked at Elder Jing. Where did you get it from? On the battlefield of the Situ family, in the hands of the enemy. Su Yu said, this is a scandal of the faction. I believe those who know about it haven't decided how to report it to the faction. Now that only a few of us are here, it's up to the Palace Master to decide how to deal with it. Tianxian held the jade box in her hand and nodded slowly. Her eyes turned cold all of a sudden. What do you think? If someone from the inner sanctum colludes with the enemy from the outside and harms the faction, what punishment should he receive? Chapter 9:39. Elder Jing said sternly, is there a need to say it? Betraying the faction is a serious crime. The lightest punishment is to abolish the cultivation and expel them from the faction. The heaviest punishment is to kill them to deter future generations. Good answer. Tianxian nodded lightly, but her face was even colder. She turned her head and stared at Elder Jing. If that's the case, how do you explain it, Elder Jing? Smack! The jade box was thrown to the ground, and a glowing talisman fell out. Master Ghost glanced at it and said in surprise, isn't this the talisman of Elder Jing's formation-breaking hammer? How? He looked at Elder Jing, then at Su Yu. Elder Jing's heart skipped a beat. This talisman was given to Xiao Chuanguang in exchange for torturing Su Yu. In the end, the Xiao family rebelled, and Xiao Chuanguang disappeared. Elder Jing, don't you have anything to say? Tianxian asked coldly. Elder Jing's face turned pale. She thought for a moment, then glared at Su Yu and said sternly, Palace Master, please don't believe his slander. I don't know how this talisman fell into his hands. Is that so? Tianchuan's face turned even colder. This talisman contains your essence blood. If it's lost, you can destroy it with a single thought. So, Elder Jing, please answer, why did it fall into the hands of the traitor Xiao family and remain safe until now? In other words, without Elder Jing's deliberate action, the talisman could not have survived until now. Plop! Elder Jing's face turned pale. She kowtowed and said, Palace Master, please investigate this. I have always been loyal to the faction, and I had no intention of rebelling. It was him. He slandered me. Upon hearing that, Tianchuan's face turned cold. Unrepentant. When she finished, she clawed at Elder Jing's head with enormous demonic energy surrounding her fingers. Elder Jing let out a shrill scream, as if her soul was suffering intense pain. Before long, Tianxian retracted her palm, her eyes glinting coldly. Umph! You gave Xiao Chuanguang the talisman to help you deal with Su Yuxian, and you still dare to claim that you're innocent? Bang! Tianxian kicked Elder Jing into the house where Su Yu had stayed. She then opened the seal and said coldly, spend the rest of your life in the dungeon. This was on account of the fact that she had not truly rebelled. Otherwise, it would not be as simple as imprisoning her. It took no more than the time to drink a cup of tea. Su Yu had escaped from being a prisoner, while Elder Jing had become a prisoner. Now that the matter had come to an end, Su Yu was physically and mentally exhausted. After bidding farewell, he returned to the outer sanctum. Tianxian only reminded them to make preparations to deal with the emissaries of the Heavenly Knife region within 3 days. She also reminded them that she couldn't see through the mysterious jade-clothed man either. So you did not underestimate it. He planned to thoroughly study the golden mu words on the sacrificial altar after settling some matters. There were a few words that Su Yu was unfamiliar with. As he stood in front of the Demon Mountain once again, Su Yu felt quite awkward. A few days before he left, he was determined to leave the faction. However, a few days later, he was forcefully abducted by Mo Tianxian. Fortunately, the alluring cabinet mistress was the only one in the sanctum who had noticed Su Yu's intention to leave. Otherwise, Su Yu would be too ashamed to come back. After entering the Demon Mountain, the scenery and atmosphere were all familiar. As he pushed open the courtyard door, a beautiful purple figure was missing. Su Yu couldn't help but feel regretful. He didn't know where Zixuan had been transported to and whether she was safe now. With her all-creations cultivation and her reputation as the student of the Central Prefecture's king, she would surely return to the Central Prefecture soon. Ah, Su Yu, oh no, Brother Yushin, you're back. Zixuan was not in the courtyard, but a delicate figure dressed in purple and black rushed out of the house. Her face was full of surprise. No, it was an unforeseen ecstasy. Wuxia, why are you in my house? Su Yu asked. Wuxia was probably the only person apart from Zixuan who knew that Su Yu was Su Yu. I thought you would leave the Red Blood Palace. Gongsun Wuxia was very close to him. She gritted her teeth, her watery eyes unblinking. She heaved a long sigh of relief, and the self-blame in her heart dimmed a lot. It's a long story. Su Yu was speechless. He didn't do anything to Gongsun Wuxia back then because he wouldn't return to the Red Blood Palace. Who would have thought that things would turn out this way? However, from the way Gongsun Wuxia quickly changed the way she addressed him from Su Yu to Su Yu, it seemed that she wanted to keep Su Yu's secret. Gongsun Wuxia rubbed her small hands together and said nervously and expectantly, "That's great. Will Brother Yushin still leave?" "Probably not for the time being." Su Yu smiled bitterly. He was afraid that if he dared to take even half a step out of the Red Blood Palace, he would be caught by Mo Tianxian. Oh yeah, Gongsun Wuxia jumped up in surprise. Her face was full of joy. "Brother Yushin, how about you guide me in my training?" Su Yu shook his head in amusement. "If you really want to train, why do you need my guidance?" This little girl's background was frighteningly huge. Gongsun Wuxia smiled foolishly, but didn't expose Su Yu's terrifying magical power of time reversal. I thought you died outside." Right at that moment, a cold voice came from outside the house. Bing Wuxin walked in with her long, round legs, holding a long sword in her arms. Gongsun Wuxia placed her hands on the table and said with a smile, "Sister Wuxin, you can't do this. Brother Yushin is your lover. Haven't you been moved by the reward of 3 million merit points?" Bing Wuxin glared at her, put down her sword, and sat opposite Su Yu. They looked at each other across the table. She said, "I came here to talk about this matter." Slap. She took out her identity badge and put it on the table. "The mission is completed, and the reward has been exchanged. There are 3 million merit points. I only took 300,000 merit points, and I'll return the remaining 2,700,000 merit points to you. The merit points of the glittering jewel wonderland are already enough." Su Yu wasn't a pedantic person. Back then, he had planned to leave the faction, so he didn't care about the merit points. Now that he had returned, he naturally had to prepare new merit points. He took out his badge and transferred the merit points from it. He had obtained 300,000 merit points in Tianya City. Just now, Mo Tianxian had rewarded him with 1 million merit points. Together with the 2,300,000 merit points, he had exactly 4 million merit points. He had also accumulated enough merit points for the glittering jewel wonderland. This was a pleasant surprise. "Su Yushin, I've been thinking about this for many days. Now, I want to tell you about my thoughts and decision," Mo Tianxian said with a stern look. Su Yu was dumbfounded. "What thoughts and decision?" Confused, he said, "Okay, go ahead." Bing Wuxin looked at Su Yu and spoke clearly. "I already understand your feelings for me, and the 300 merit points must be very important to you. Yet, you still gave them to me. I assumed that you were just putting on a show, but I didn't expect that you were serious." Wait, Su Yu felt like he had been struck by something. He had given the merit points because he didn't need them, and he had given them to Bing Wuxin before leaving. So, How could she conclude that he was in love with Bing Wuxin? Now, let me tell you about my decision. Bing Wuxin didn't give Suyu a chance to explain himself. I've thought about it for many days, and it doesn't matter who I marry. Since you have feelings for me, I'll marry you. From today onwards, you're my fiancé, so I can avoid being pestered by other people. I've already informed my mother about this decision, so you should prepare yourself for my inspection. Chapter 940. Putting aside the fact that she had unilaterally decided to get engaged to Suyu, why wasn't Suyu happy from her tone? It was as if marrying Suyu was a very casual thing. Suyu's face darkened. Bing Wuxin, I think you've misunderstood. I gave you merit points because I knew you were in urgent need of 1,000,000 merit points. I didn't mean anything else. Bing Wuxin looked calm. Isn't that how you care about me? Many people pursue me in the inner sanctum, and many know that I'm short of 1,000,000 merit points. But you're the only one who's willing to give up the chance to enter the glittering jewel wonderland to help me. Isn't this friendship? She stared at Suyu with a matter-of-fact expression, as if she understood emotions very well. Suyu was speechless. A casual gesture had caused such a misunderstanding. All right, that's it. I'm going back to train. Bing Wuxin stood up and left as if she had just announced an ordinary event. Before she left, she looked back at Gongsun Wuxia, then at Suyu. She stopped and said, I've been very concerned since just now. When did you two become so close? A few days ago, Gongsun Wuxia's attitude towards Suyu was terrible. After returning, she waited for Suyu every 2 or 3 days. Even now, she was still very close to Suyu. Although she didn't show it, as a woman, Gongsun Wuxia's attitude towards Suyu had changed drastically. Gongsun Wuxia said with a smile, Brother Yuxian will be my brother-in-law soon. How can I not be close to him? Bing Wuxin frowned. It sounded reasonable, but it wasn't the case. Whether Yuxian confessed to you before or not, Wuxin, I hope you keep your distance from him in the future. He's my fiancé now, Bing Wuxin said. Gongsun Wuxia dragged her tone. Oh, only then did Bing Wuxin walk away with big strides. Suyu was speechless. Bing Wuxin didn't give him a chance to accept it. This matter couldn't be delayed. He had to make it clear to Bing Wuxin as soon as possible. He was a man with a family. How could he become another woman's fiancé? Wuxin, you should go back and rest, Suyu said. Gongsun Wuxia crossed her arms and said with a smile, Congratulations, Brother Yuxian. You're going to win the heart of a beauty. Sister Wuxin is such a beautiful woman that even I am moved. Suyu hit her on the head angrily, and she ran away with a laugh. This was a small disturbance for Suyu. There were many things to do next. In a flash, Suyu arrived at the depository of scriptures. After a whole day, he left in disappointment. After an entire day, he left in disappointment. He wanted to find a matching cultivation technique for the Underworld Pearl. In the hands of the Ghost Realm's great emperor, the Underworld Pearl was a complete set of 9 pearls. Now, in Suyu's hands, a single one of them could only be used for simple things like throwing. Due to the gravity, even though it was extremely powerful, its attack method was very simple, and it was difficult to pose a great threat to the enemy. Unfortunately, the cultivation technique within the bead was very rare. Cultivation techniques that were suitable for the heavy nature of the underworld bead were even rarer. Fortunately, Suyu was mentally prepared, so he wasn't too disappointed. He quickly calmed himself down and went into seclusion. There were 2 things that he had to do in these 3 days. The first was to thoroughly master the last part of the Wood Clan's characters, which he was not familiar with. The second was to consume the heart-refining mortal dust liquid, which was a 5th-grade spirit elixir, in order to raise his soul to the level of an almighty. There were 2 things he had to do in the next 3 days. The first was to master the last part of the Mu words. The second was to take the 5th-grade heart-refining mortal dust liquid and improve his soul to the almighty level. The unfamiliar golden Mu words were all ancient Mu words. Although they were rare, so you could recognize most of them. With the help of the scroll left by the Netherworld priest, it wasn't a big problem. The golden Mu words were ancient Mu words. Although they were rare, so you could recognize most of them. With the help of the scroll left by the Underworld priest, it was not a big problem. The challenge in 2 days was not difficult. After a short rest, Suyu took out a jade bottle. The bottle was filled with a transparent spiritual liquid. It was as clear as water, and only 5 colorful veins were faintly discernible. The 5th-grade heart refining mortal dust liquid. It was a world of difference from the 3rd-grade heart refining mortal dust liquid on the market. Its effect was hard to predict. Would it help Suyu break through the almighty level? Filled with anticipation, Suyu opened the jade box and emptied it. Suddenly, he felt a burning sensation coming from the depths of his throat. It was like a burning flame that was about to burn through his throat. The strange pain made Suyu shudder. It was as if his dantian was being reshaped on the spot. The pain did not subside with the penetration of the medicine. Instead, it spread to the depths of his body until it reached his soul. The moment it touched his soul, Suyu let out a muffled groan and furrowed his brows. Then, the pain increased and soared. "This!" Suyu gasped. The pain finally made Suyu gasp in shock. However, the pain from the depths of his soul was increasing. The pain of his soul being fried spread to every corner of Suyu's mind. The pain made Suyu spasm. He clenched his teeth so hard that they made a cracking sound. His facial features were scrunched up, showing the pain he was in. The pain had already surpassed the pain of his dantian being reshaped. Suyu's vision turned black. He passed out in a sudden burst of pain. Even in his sleep, the pain was still there. It was as if Suyu's soul was going to be burned to ashes. However, it was this burning sensation that gradually transformed Suyu's soul. His once weak soul, under the burning sensation, was becoming more powerful. The sensation was clearer, as if he was in contact with the outside world. Previously, whenever his soul left his body, Suyu would feel a bone-chilling cold and could not leave his body for too long. Now it was much better. The icy cold feeling had turned into a faint chill. Unfortunately, Suyu was unconscious and could not feel the gradual changes. Unknowingly, Suyu felt a warm, gentle, and powerful feeling in his sleep. It nourished Suyu's soul and caused the burning sensation to subside. That comfortable feeling made Suyu feel as if he had been reborn. The pain on his face gradually eased, and he fell into a deep sleep. This sleep lasted for 2 days and 2 nights. When Suyu opened his eyes, the sky was filled with stars, and the outside world was dark. Suyu subconsciously touched his head. There was a faint pain in his soul, a remnant of the extreme pain from the previous day. Shaking his head, Suyu felt a lingering fear as he thought about the previous day. This was the first time he had fainted from pain since he started training. In comparison, the pain from the dantian reconstruction last time paled in comparison to the pain from the previous day. The medicinal power of the 5th-grade heart refining mortal dust liquid was comparable to 100 3rd-grade heart refining mortal dust liquid. It would be strange if it did not hurt. When Suyu's mind became clear, he shivered. He found that his senses had once again undergone a shocking change. The whole world seemed to have been pulled closer. He did not need to search deliberately to clearly discover the movements of every blade of grass and tree within 100 miles. Tens of thousands of insects were whispering, and men and women of the faction were whispering. Everything was so clear. Suyu was astonished by the novelty of it all. Did I make a breakthrough? Suyu's heart thumped as he tried to leave his body with his soul. A transparent figure emerged from the top of Suyu's head. A gust of wind blew, but Suyu was safe and sound. He did not feel the slightest bit of coldness. This soul is even stronger than the soul of an early-stage almighty, isn't it? Suyu looked at his own soul in shock. He had killed almighty many times and seen many almighty souls, so he had a certain judgment of the strength of a soul. His soul at the moment was definitely not as simple as someone who had just broken through to the almighty level. Impossible. The medicinal power of the 5th-grade heart refining mortal dust liquid can just barely make my soul break through to the almighty level. Even if that's the limit, how could I break through 2 levels in a row? Suyu found it unbelievable. As Suyu was deep in thought, a familiar chuckle, which he had not heard for a long time, suddenly came from his chest. After waking up, you have already cultivated the Son of Heaven's Imperial Soul technique to stage 2 top class, which has far exceeded my expectations. Suyu's whole body trembled. and his eyes were filled with excitement. Master, you have finally woken up. Chapter 941. A soul body flew out of the jade box in Su Yu's bosom and turned into a corporeal form. From afar, it seemed like a complete body. If one didn't sense it carefully, it would be hard to tell that the person in front of them was actually in soul form. Haha, little fellow, it's been a long time since we last met. Your growth has really surprised me. Yin Yazi looked Su Yu up and down and nodded his head in approval. He had seen many so-called geniuses, and they were as numerous as the 9 heavens. For Su Yu to receive the evaluation of star, it could be seen that Su Yu had improved greatly. Master, Su Yu's soul returned to his physical body, and he excitedly bowed to him. Disciple Su Yu welcomes Master's return. After coming to the 9 regions, he had not met an old friend for a long time. His heart was filled with mixed feelings. Yin Yazi chuckled, helped Su Yu up, and said with a smile, "There is no need for such formalities between us." He raised his head and looked around, then said in surprise, "This isn't the Jinlong world anymore, right?" "Yes, Master. It's already the Jiuzhou continent," Su Yu said. Yin Yazi's eyes revealed a nostalgic look. "So, it's the 9 prefectures. I've heard of it in the past. It's one of the birthplaces of the human race. If I remember correctly, the star envoy in charge of the 9 prefectures is a little girl named Linlang." "All right. Master, are you talking about the glittering jewel mortal fairy?" Su Yu asked. Yin Yazi's expression darkened. "Mortal fairy? Does that mean that she didn't overcome the danger and passed away?" Mortal fairies only had a lifespan of 10,000 years. If they were still called mortal fairies after 10,000 years, they would definitely not be in this world anymore. Su Yu smacked his lips. If he remembered correctly, the glittering jewel mortal fairy was a mortal fairy who had existed since the beginning of time. She was the oldest mortal fairy in the Jiuzhou continent. Her legend had been passed down in many ancient books. However, Yin Yazi referred to her as a girl. Didn't that mean that Yin Yazi had existed for more than 10,000 years? Yes, he passed away in meditation 10,000 years ago. Su Yu continued. She left behind a relic in the Jiuzhou continent for Jiuzhou's geniuses to train. It's called the Glittering Jewel Wonderland. Yin Yazi stroked his beard and sighed. As expected, she kept her promise and left her mantle to be passed down to the humans of Jiuzhou. Promise? Su Yu couldn't help but ask, "Master, what promise?" Yin Yazi looked at Su Yu, his eyes filled with the vicissitudes of time. "There's a promise between me and her." It seemed like he didn't want to talk about it, so Su Yu didn't ask any further. Since she has passed away, that thing must have been left behind. Su Yu, you must make a trip to the Glittering Jewel Wonderland. That thing has been waiting for you for a long time, Yin Yazi said. Su Yu was even more curious now. Did the Glittering Jewel Mortal Fairy leave something behind for Su Yu to retrieve? Perhaps this was the agreement between Yin Yazi and the Glittering Jewel Mortal Fairy. "Yes, Master," Su Yu said. Yin Yazi was silent for a long time, and the loneliness and bleakness in his eyes faded away. He looked at Su Yu, and his eyes lit up again. "Tell me what happened to you while I was asleep for so many years." Su Yu nodded his head and told her everything that had happened in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. From the Jinlong world's invasion, to being stranded in the Jiuzhou world, to sneaking into the Red Blood Palace, almost everything was described in detail. After listening to him, Yin Yazi had an apologetic look in his eyes. His strict demands on Su Yu had caused Su Yu to face all the difficulties and obstacles alone. Although Su Yu had only mentioned it briefly, Yin Yazi could feel the dangers involved. "You are very lucky to have met a dying tree goddess," Yin Yazi said. Yin Yazi said, "I've heard a little about the race of the ancient bronze tree deity. Next time, I'll lend her a hand. I will not let my disciple receive favors for nothing." Su Yu's eyes were filled with curiosity. "Master, what level of cultivation have you recovered to? How much of what you were back then?" Yin Yazi chuckled. "Now, I'm only a 10,000th of what I was back then. Even my soul is mostly damaged. How can I talk about back then? As for the specific cultivation, it is about the same as those 10, no, 11 auras. The 10 auras naturally refer to the 9 great prefectures' kings and the Duanshin Cliff Master. So, who was the 11th aura referring to? Strange. Why is there the aura of the Ghost Clan? Yin Yazi murmured softly as he stared at the southernmost land, as if he could see through the whole continent. Suyu did not hear the murmur, nor did he care about the additional aura. In Suyu's eyes, Jojo was as vast as the clouds. It was not surprising that there was another being comparable to the 9 great prefectures' kings. Master, if that's the case, can you deal with the Central Prefecture's king? Suyu had not forgotten the Central Prefecture's king's threat. After he came out of isolation, he would personally hunt Suyu down. Upon hearing that, Yin Yazi shook his head. Judging from the golden dust on your body, this person is the strongest of the 11 auras. I may not be able to deal with him. The strongest of the 9 great prefectures' kings. The ranking of the 9 great prefectures' kings had always been a mystery, because the 9 great prefectures' kings would only appear when they fought for the throne of Jojo. For the rest of the time, the 9 great prefectures' kings lived in harmony. It turned out that the Central Prefecture's king was the strongest among them. A sense of urgency and crisis enveloped Suyu's heart. However, you don't have to worry too much. This person's aura is a little strange. He must have encountered some problems in his training. He won't trouble you for the time being, Yin Yazi said. I understand. I will find a way to improve my strength in the near future, Suyu said with solemn eyes. Yin Yazi nodded slightly and said, How is your mastery of the many words that I handed to you? Upon hearing that, Suyu said, I am proficient in the Mu words, 60% proficient in the Demon Clan words, 20% to 30% proficient in the Dragon Clan words, sufficient words, ghost words, and so on. Yin Yazi was surprised. Proficient in the Mu words? It's only been 2 or 3 years. With surprise, Yin Yazi tested Suyu on the spot. In the end, Suyu answered him fluently and flawlessly. Even the rarest ancient Mu words were not difficult for him. TSK. I have seen many geniuses who claim to be demonic in their attainments in words, but compared to you, they're like ordinary people. Yin Yazi was surprised again and again. He looked Suyu up and down as if he wanted to see through him. TSK. A mediocre person needs 100 years, a normal person needs 50 years, and a genius needs 20 years. But you only need 2 years. Yin Yazi stared at Suyu as if he had discovered a peerless treasure. Suyu was embarrassed. He had made use of the power of time of the divine 9-dragon cauldron to achieve what he had today. If he had to calculate it, the time he had spent was about 40 to 50 years. His attainments in words were actually only at the level of a normal person. Master, you flatter me, Suyu said modestly. Yin Yazi's eyes shone. After pondering for a long time, he said, If that's the case, it's time to pass on the other book to you. Originally, it would take you a lifetime to study the words that I have studied. However, it would be a pity for your talent in words to go to waste like this. As he spoke, Yin Yazi took out a transparent fluorescent light from between his brows. The fluorescent light turned into the shape of a book and flew into Suyu's palm. The book was flickering with all kinds of complicated words, which were extremely unfamiliar. Not only that, but every word contained some kind of invisible, mysterious meaning. As he flipped through it, Suyu felt as if he had fallen into the great way of heaven and earth. He was immersed in the infinite mysteries. Chaos, the universe, the stars, all things, life, death, reincarnation, fate. Many supreme mysteries of the world appeared in Suyu's mind. He seemed to see the beginning of the world, the birth of the vast universe, the reproduction of all things, life and death, the inexorable reincarnation, and the rules of fate. He also saw the figure of a young man playing chess. He was surrounded by the universe, all things, and the galaxy. It was as if the whole world and all living things were revolving around him. He was the center of everything. Suyu stared blankly at the figure of the young man playing chess. Who was that? Why did he see him? At that moment, the young man seemed to have sensed something and turned to look. That look made Suyu feel as if he had been seen through and had nowhere to hide. Even the divine 9-dragon cauldron hidden deep within his soul was seen through. In an instant, Suyu felt as if his soul was about to crumble. It was as if he was about to be annihilated by this person's gaze. So you wake up. At that moment, a clear, loud voice resounded in Su Yu's ears like rolling thunder. Su Yu shuddered. The galaxy and universe in his mind dissipated, and the real world reappeared before his eyes. Yun Yazi said solemnly, "What did you see?" Su Yu said, "Everything." His answer was only 2 words. In the book, he saw everything in the world. It was as if the book was a world of its own, containing everything. Yun Yazi nodded slightly, revealing a gratified smile. However, Su Yu's next words made Yun Yazi frown. There was also a young man playing chess. Yun Yazi's smile froze. His face gradually turned frosty as he asked, "Did you see him?" Su Yu nodded, completely at a loss. "Master, who is he? Why does the universe revolve around him?" Yun Yazi's eyes flickered with a light that Su Yu had never seen before. After a long silence, Yun Yazi did not answer. "You will know when the time comes." Su Yu tried to recall the young man's figure, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not recall his face. It was as if an invisible force of heaven and earth had erased that memory. You can call this book the Book of First Heavens. It is rumored that at the beginning of the world, the 10,000 words in this book were the first to be created. The words of every race in the future came from this book. They evolved from one of the words in it, Yun Yazi said. Words from the beginning of the world? Su Yu was shocked. The Book of First Heavens recorded a total of 10,000 words. The human race chose a word to evolve, and human words were born. The demon race chose a word to evolve, and demon words were born. The Mu race chose a word to evolve, and Mu words were born. It is said that if you can comprehend all the words in the Book of First Heavens, you will be able to understand the 8 heavenly law profound meanings of the world: destiny, reincarnation, death, lifetime, space, soul, and creation. It was the first time Su Yu had heard of the heavenly law profound meanings. Mastering one of the 8 profound meanings can make you the supreme leader of all races, above all living beings. Su Yu's eyes shone. What if I master all 8? 8. Yun Yazi shook his head. Since the beginning of the world, there's only been one person who has mastered all 8 heavenly law profound meanings. That is the young man you saw playing chess. Chapter 942. There is only one heavenly law in this world. Since it is here, there will not be a second heavenly law. Su Yu stared at the Book of First Heavens in his palm and asked, "Master, what kind of profound meaning are you studying? Is it the soul?" The heaven sun gazing at air was a gift from Yun Yazi. This book was related to the soul. Could it be that Yun Yazi was studying the profound meaning of the soul? Yun Yazi shook his head gently. "I only discovered this book later. Although I had the desire to study it thoroughly, I was unable to do so." Su Yu was even more curious. What kind of profound meaning had Yun Yazi chosen? Why had he never revealed it before? Then, how many words of the Book of First Heavens have you mastered? Su Yu asked. Yun Yazi's expression stiffened. "Not many." "How many is not many?" Su Yu pressed on. Yun Yazi put up one finger. Su Yu's eyes lit up. "Master, you have comprehended 1,000, a full 10%? However, Yun Yazi shook his head with an unnatural expression. 100? Su Yu clicked his tongue. Yun Yazi's face fell. 10? Su Yu was dumbfounded. "Why are you asking so clearly? Can't you comprehend it yourself?" Yun Yazi was a little embarrassed and scolded Su Yu. Su Yu sucked in a breath of cold air. This meant that Yun Yazi had only comprehended one of them. "What are you surprised about? The Book of First Heavens has existed for hundreds of millions of years, and only a few people can comprehend it. Even among gods, only a few can comprehend it," Yun Yazi said impatiently, his face slightly red. He had lost face in front of his disciple. "God?" Su Yu was surprised. Was he referring to gods like the tree god? In this world, were there other gods besides the tree god? Was Yun Yazi also a god when he was alive? Just as Su Yu was about to ask more questions, Yun Yazi suddenly said, "2 women are looking for you. I will guide you in your training next time." When he finished speaking, Yun Yazi immediately returned to the jade box, faster than ever before. Suyu was speechless. He seemed to have touched Yun Yazi's sore spot. Suyu was more interested in the Book of First Heavens. It involved the great path of the world and was exceptionally mysterious. Brother Yuxian, I heard that you're going to face the emissary from the Heavenly Knife region. We'll cheer for you. Gongsun Wuxia giggled as she ran into the courtyard. Suyu put away the Book of First Heavens. The moment he put down the Book of First Heavens, many of the words in Suyu's memory underwent subtle changes. For example, when he was proficient in the Mu language, it seemed to have merged into one. There were clearly millions of characters, but there was a tendency for them to merge into one. The rest of the characters also showed signs of merging. Suyu was surprised. What was going on? This was the effect of reading the Book of First Heavens. Millions of Mu characters evolved into a single character. Could it be that the Mu characters in his mind were going to fuse into that character? Once the fusion was successful, it would mean that Suyu had mastered a character of the Book of First Heavens. Yun Yazi had spent his entire life comprehending only one, yet Suyu had managed to comprehend a single character of the Book of First Heavens in such a short time. Suyu couldn't believe it. After thinking about it for a long time, Suyu felt that the Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron was the most likely. The 8 profound truths of the Heavenly Tao included the profound truths of time and space. The red liquid in the Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron had given Suyu these 2 profound truths. Although they weren't very profound, they were unique to outsiders. This made Suyu's heart thump. If he told Yun Yazi about this, he would definitely be so shocked that he wouldn't be able to face his disciple again. After suppressing his emotions, Suyu looked at the 2 of them and said, "Why are you following me? It's just an ordinary challenge." Bing Wuxin hugged the cold long sword and said, "I'm your fiancé. Is this reason enough?" Suyu felt a headache coming on. However, Gongsun Wuxia was beside him, so it wasn't convenient for him to talk about this. He had to find a suitable time to talk to Bing Wuxin alone as soon as possible. "What about you?" Suyu looked at Gongsun Wuxia. Gongsun Wuxia puffed up her chest. "We are the 5 great demons who have gone through thick and thin together. Of course, we have to help you." "Fine." Suyu had no choice but to step out of the courtyard and come to the 2 of them. How did your soul energy break through the 3rd grade almighty level?" As soon as Suyu came near, Bing Wuxin blinked her eyes and stared at Suyu in surprise. Suyu was able to break through the 3rd grade almighty level because of Yun Yazi. In his deep sleep, the warm energy that relieved his pain could only have come from Yun Yazi. However, Yun Yazi didn't mention anything about this. Gongsun Wuxia clasped her hands behind her back and walked a circle around Suyu. She sized him up and said indignantly, "You're the greatest demon. You were just a 6th grade fairy a long time ago, and now you're a 9th grade fairy. Now you're a 3rd grade almighty. My God, if anyone calls me a demon again, I'll beat them to death." Suyu looked at Bing Wuxin meaningfully. Only all creation old monsters could see through a divine master's soul, yet Bing Wuxin could do it too. Thinking about the 9th grade almighty aura emanating from Bing Wuxin's chest, Suyu was very curious about Bing Wuxin's identity. It was an accidental breakthrough. Suyu didn't want to talk about it. Bing Wuxin stared at Suyu and said, "You're strange from head to toe. I've never seen anyone's soul energy break through so quickly and with such strength. Generally speaking, it was very difficult to increase one's soul energy. Even a divine master who specialized in soul cultivation was only slightly stronger than someone of the same level. Being able to increase one's cultivation by a whole realm was considered an anomaly. Suyu, a 9th grade fairy, had a 3rd grade almighty soul energy, which couldn't be explained by common sense. "Everyone has their own secrets," Suyu said calmly. Hearing Suyu's displeasure, Bing Wuxin snorted. "Who do you think I'm doing this for? If there's anything strange about you, it's best to hide it. Otherwise, when my mother comes to investigate, it'll be too late. She's not as easy to talk to as I am." Gongsun Wuxia also said, "That's right, Brother Yuxian. Sister Wuxin's mother is very unreasonable." Suyu looked at Bing Wuxin and muttered under his breath, "Like mother, like daughter. What did you say?" Bing Wuxin frowned. The corners of Suyu's mouth twitched. He stepped on the tip of his foot and flew into the air. Bing Wuxin snorted coldly. She strode forward with her slender and round legs and caught up with him quickly. She stood on Su Yu's left side and stood side by side with him. From a back, they looked like a married couple. Gongsun Wuxia laughed charmingly and came to Su Yu's right side. Naturally, she was very close to him and seemed very intimate. Bing Wuxin furrowed her brows. Her lips wriggled, but she didn't stop them in the end. The three of them arrived at the inner sanctum. Many elders of the inner sanctum were already waiting there. Su Yu and the others were the center of attention when they landed. They had only heard of Su Yuxian, the #1 student of the outer sanctum, and had never seen him in person. The sacrifice in the desolate evil jungle had only surprised and intrigued them. After the battle at the Sidhu family, Su Yu had the ancient space, spiritual body, divine decree, and soul talent. In their eyes, Su Yu was equivalent to a peerless genius. With all these talents added together, he would definitely achieve great things when he grew up. Naturally, they were all eager to see his true appearance. They were sizing Su Yu up, and Su Yu was sizing them up too. He glanced at them one by one and nodded calmly. He then came to Master Go's side and stood there quietly. "Ha, Master Su, with your status, you could have come to the inner sanctum long ago. Why do you still want to stay in the outer sanctum?" The left palace master had a smile on his face. Beside him was Xueqi, who had met Su Yu several times. Su Yu nodded and smiled. "Left palace master, thank you for your kindness, but I will still follow the sanctum's rules. It won't be too late for me to enter the inner sanctum after I break through the divine master realm." How could Su Yu not understand the solicitation in his words? He had brought Xueqi here with the intention of getting closer to him. However, he really didn't want to be restrained too much. Moreover, the left palace master couldn't give Su Yu what he wanted. In terms of resources, Su Yu wasn't necessarily inferior to the left palace master. The martial path requires perseverance and patience. If you think this way, I won't try to persuade you again. The left palace master smiled, but he was disappointed. Su Yu, who was at the peak of his power, was favored by all parties. He didn't need to join any camp, and he would be specially nurtured. Hence, he wouldn't lack resources. Now, the hope of recruiting Su Yu was slim. Even the left palace master was in such a state, let alone the right palace master. Those who wanted to take Su Yu as their disciple gave up on the idea. The ancient spiritual body was what Palace Master Mo was interested in. Who would dare to snatch it away from her? Whoosh! At this moment, 3 figures stepped into the main hall. 2 of them were strangers, and one of them was someone Su Yu knew. It was the two-headed man, Qin Lin. Master Go said, "That middle-aged man is the deputy region master of the Heavenly Knife region, and the Jade Robe man is an expert they found. He's Master Gao from Tianya City, and he couldn't even withstand 3 rounds of attacks." Su Yu looked at the Jade Robe man and found it strange. This person gave him an uncomfortable feeling. After thinking for a moment, his eyes shone with silver light, and he used his transparent eyes to see through the Jade Robe man. He didn't know what material the Jade Robe man was made of, but it was very strange. It was very difficult for his soul eyes to see through it. However, after looking through the Jade Robe man, there was nothing inside. This scene shocked Su Yu. What's going on? Before Su Yu could take a closer look, a strong repulsive force suddenly bounced Su Yu's soul energy away. Su Yu felt a slight pain in his soul, but his face didn't change. He withdrew his soul eyes as if nothing had happened. "Eh!" The Jade Robe man exclaimed softly as he looked around. Deputy Region Master Xiao noticed the Jade Robed man's strange behavior and asked through telepathy, "What happened?" The Jade Robed man said solemnly, "There's an expert here. He saw through the Jade Robed man and almost saw through me." Upon hearing this, Deputy Region Master Xiao became serious and said in a low voice, "How could this be? The Jade Robed man is a fragment of a fairy artifact, and it's enough to hide from the detection of all creation's old monsters. How could he see through it?" "I don't know how he did it, but the Jade Robed man did see through it," the Jade Robed man said. Deputy Region Master Xiao narrowed his eyes. "It seems that there's another mysterious expert in the Red Blood Palace besides Mo Tianxian. Could it be the cliff master of the severed fairy cliff? This person has a close relationship with Mo Tianxian. Right at this moment, a wave of space fluctuation came from the palace master's throne. A woman in black with a graceful figure and stunning beauty descended and sat down naturally. She had a majestic presence, as if she was the ruler of the world. "Greetings, Palace Master Mo." The elders bowed one after another. Mo Tianxian glanced at the crowd with her bright eyes, and her gaze lingered on Su Yu and the emissary of the Heavenly Knife region for a brief moment. "Since everyone is here, Deputy Region Master Xiao, please say it again." Deputy Region Master Xiao stepped forward and said with a smile, "On behalf of the Region Master, I hope to consult the experts of the Mu clan and the Red Blood Palace about the Mu language. For this purpose, I've been ordered by the Region Master to bring 100 million crystals. If the Heavenly Knife region does not perform well, the 100 million crystals will be considered as compensation for disturbing the Red Blood Palace. If we win by chance, I hope the Red Blood Palace will consider keeping the Heavenly Knife region shop in Tianya City for the time being." Mo Tianxian stared at Su Yu with her pretty eyes. "Do you understand?"